Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello,
Hello. Greetings and salutations.
Ruth.
Happening.
How's it going?
It's going well. Summertime.
I love summertime.
Summertime. Really
All
cool.
year-round time. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
it's good to see you too. Yeah,
Yeah, no kidding, right?
yeah. So, how's the multi-instrumentalist composer uh, film
Good.
score everything person
Good.
doing?
Chilling out, which is important.
Yeah, you taking a break?
Yeah, it's really important to do that.
I know,
So
and none of us do it enough, do we?
it's insane. Yeah. So I have been saying no to a lot of things lately so that I can just have time for me.
Just live,
Yeah, retank,
a human being rather than
retank. Hey, everybody out there trying to be creative, chill out.
human doing.
You know what I mean? Like take time,
Yes.
take time to stop. It's important.
It is. You get to refresh and you get to rethink things and get a new perspective and live a little and have something to write about that without stressing for it or straining for it. Things just come to you.
Exactly. Then there's no doing really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Then
it's
it's
kind of
back in the flow.
yeah, exactly. That's the commuter rail, which rarely, especially on a Sunday, rarely
Yeah.
comes, but here it is.
Not, not,
Yeah,
not,
Doppler.
not coming through.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, well
Yeah.
that's good. Oh, probably because okay, maybe because of this. All right,
Yeah.
that's
That sounds
cool.
good. That's working really well.
Good. How about you? You playing?
I have been resting as well. Started, who knew I was starting a podcast, started a podcast and, you know, the album Snowcake just came out in April. Was it March
Cool.
or April? So, yeah. I actually have friends coming over on Wednesday to start more recording, but I have a lot of other songs started because they're always in different stages.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're very prolific. It's always inspiring hearing about what you're up to.
Well, it's just fun to be us. It
No
really
kidding.
is. It really is. And I remember borrowing a phrase, and I've been saying it ever since I heard you say it. You said, I'm dedicated to a healthy mind.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
I liked
That was wise.
that was that was good. Yeah. Well, I just
Yeah,
had Eric Mazel on the other day, and he was talking about how you have to choose thoughts that serve you. And
true.
we don't realize that we're the only ones thinking in our own heads.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, and this is, I mean, for me, there's no distinction between, and this is not trying to impose any kind of belief on anyone at all, but for me, there's no separation between having a spiritual sense of myself and being creative.
Oh, yeah. No, no, no.
And so the aspect of understanding the anatomy of the human mind, the mind is designed to be critical. I mean, there are aspects of the intellect that are designed to be critical, and it's taken me all this time to really understand how to work with this so that I have the reins over it rather than it having the reins over me. So, it's I hear a lot of people, especially like with students, talking about how they can't, get out of feeling like their work sucks or whatever. And it's just bringing in that aspect of the mind too soon. It's just not understanding one's own mind that can create blocks,
Yeah,
you
because
know.
our brains are trying to keep us safe. So it's looking for a problem.
Right. It's still thinking that it's being, pursued by a Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever,
Right, right.
It hasn't evolved past that stage. We're not being chased by dinosaurs anymore, you guys, but the mind hasn't caught up with it yet, you
Yeah.
know.
And have you gotten into the work of Dana Wilde or Brooke Castillo and learning about the RAS in the brain?
Mm-mm.
That's a really cool thing. The reticular activating system is like a magnet in the
Uh-huh.
brain that scientists have discovered not too long
Yeah.
ago, I guess. And it's
Hmm.
always bringing us what we think about and talk about and believe. It's always giving us
Right.
more of that. So it's
Right.
important to give it something to think about that's actually worthwhile. Like, what should I put in for a bridge on my song rather than Why am I such a jerk?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Toss the dog a bone and make sure it's a good one.
Yeah, because it's going to keep giving you answers, and if you ask stupid questions, it's going to give you
It's
answers you
it's
don't
gonna
want.
it's gonna give you stupid answers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah.
toss the dog a bone thing because I'm always thinking that my brain will eat itself if I don't give it something to do.
That's a crazy image.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Woohoo.
And I never liked when people say, well, my brain's my own worst enemy. And it's like, you're the one doing the
No.
thinking in your brain. You just have to every day practice about it. And there's a
Yeah.
wonderful talk with Jim Carrey giving a graduation speech at a meditation college. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I've actually seen that.
That's really good. And he's talking about how he has to tune himself thousands of times a day.
That's
And
correct.
you and I play a stringed instrument, so we know how you have to keep tuning like all day long. It's not
Yeah.
enough to tune it once.
Right. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's really important, like living um, with soulful intention.
Yeah.
I literally will not get out of bed in the morning until I've already set my intentions. I mean, I've been doing this for years.
Oh, that's a cool thing. And
Yeah.
what are some of those intentions? Are they talkable?
Some of them are talkable, some of them are probably not. But um, well, first of all, to be a clear, vibrantly clear and buoyant instrument for the divine for that day.
Nice.
To to be a good student, to learn at least one new thing the upcoming day, to notice at least three beautiful things that day.
Nice.
Um, and to, I mean, these are some of them, and it's very quick. I mean, it takes literally. I never really timed it, but it doesn't take very long at all.
Right.
Um, but and to live um, a day of commitment to being of service.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we do a lot of
So
service.
we should, yeah, yeah, including. But the thing is, but being of service is also being of service to the self.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me more.
So it's not. I see some people can think being of service means that you basically sacrifice everything about yourself in deference to something else. To me, that's not being of service. That's being codependent maybe, but you know so but being of service is to be of service to oneself, is to be of service to one's talents, to one's body, to one's health,
Yeah.
you know to have compassion for to okay, this is something that I do, in the morning, that I pray for a mind that creates no harm for anyone in thought, word, deed, or action, including myself,
Nice.
but rather my thoughts, words, deeds, actions bring auspiciousness to myself and all life around me.
Mm,
So, the self is included in this, you
absolutely.
know?
It has to be first. It's kind of like,
Yeah, right. Because if you don't have that, you don't
yeah,
really have much anyway. So,
put the oxygen on yourself first.
exactly like
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah. Just like that.
those kinds of things.
That's really cool. Um,
Yeah,
you mentioned the students not having confidence.
yeah.
One of the things I like to tell folks is, and everybody has different thoughts on this, but
Mm,
not for a big head necessarily, but just that you're in the same club. I always say, just channel your favorite artists. If you were already friends with these people, you'd be trying to live up to their standard. If you were able to hang around them, you can wake up feeling like a slug, but if Stevie Wonder knocked on the door, you wouldn't say, "Oh, go away, I'm feeling so inadequate." You would just all of a sudden be like, "Holy cow!" and
yeah,
maybe show him your stuff or whatever, and like have some kind of a conversation or make some music together. So I think sometimes we can easily get into this false humility thing of thinking I'm not that good, and really you just want people to pat you on the back, and the students are used to the parents just booing them, you know
yeah,
if you had some decent parents. And you
yeah,
don't need that after a while. Like after 18 you need to start building your own validation inside, and part of that is, like for me it was like the Beatles were like, if we can do it, anybody can do it, and I just thought, okay, well, I'll do it too. You know, they were
Right.
like four uncles for me, and I
Mm.
was young
Mhm.
enough to avoid all their bad ideas, but I, I was
Yeah,
influenced,
yeah,
and
you stepped in at the right time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, because everybody goes, "Oh, you must have been a real hippie in the '60s." My students will say, and I'm like, I was an infant in the '60s, but I did,
Right.
I did catch up eventually and enjoyed the music. But I was never a party person or a stoner or a drinker. I really was in it for the music,
Right.
and that's the part that gets me the most excited and really spins my chakras. So I'm always saying, listen to your favorite music before you go to bed and first thing in the morning, maybe, but imagine that you are already who you're desiring to be, and just be that person for the day. Because if
Yeah.
you're that cool and that productive and that, you don't have time to keep putting yourself down. You're just going to go do the real work, which is have fun with the music.
Right. Right. Well, I think that what this is pointing to, though, also is just it's a deeper to me. It's a deeper issue of who are you?
Hmm.
Who are you in the first, like, who are you? Why are you here? What were you born for?
Yeah.
What's the purpose of life in general? If you don't ask yourself these kinds of questions, everything else is going to be putting some kind of a band-aid on top, whether it be drugs, alcohol, or work, even for that matter. I see a lot of people, especially in America, because I travel a lot internationally these days. America is known for putting, bandages, material bandages on things because these other questions are not really asked,
Yeah.
you know. And then you get things like, you get the kinds of issues that we have in this country, mental health wise. Not that there aren't mental health issues in other countries too,
Hmm.
but I think as far as confidence goes, for
Hmm.
me personally, a very important component of confidence is humility.
Hmm.
Um, but this again, I always operate from a more um, for me, everything it comes out from a core of being connected inwardly, spiritually speaking, and so that's my reference point.
Yeah, you have to be anchored to something.
Right. So that's my thing with it. But I think without humility, like, to me, the music is so much greater than me.
Hmm.
It will always be greater. It'll always be it'll be infinitely greater than me because it's real music to me is such an expanse
Mm.
of endless effervescent possibilities that um I- it's humbling to be in the presence of that, and it's humbling for me to be in the presence of like real great masters who I've had the opportunity to play with, like John Barnes, who passed on about 2 years ago, a year or two ago. Anyway, he was very extraordinary session player out in LA, and I had an opportunity. He asked me to be his bass player one tour,
Nice.
and I learned more rehearsing with him in a week than I had learned in 10 years.
Like what?
Just his ideas, the vibrancy of his ideas, the the requirement to be completely meticulous with your ear. Like, he would play something on his keyboard, like, and everybody would have to like play it right back. And if you didn't, he would just look at you like you didn't get it. And it wasn't a threatening, like, you didn't get it. It was more like, you're better than this, come on, get on it. It was just this requirement of rising to excellence within oneself, but it was completely born out from total humility because the music requires a commitment to excellence.
Hmm.
It's we all owe that to the music itself, not necessarily to ourselves, because we're flawed beings, and there's got to be room for that. We're magnificently flawed, beautiful, flawed beings. Things like the arts, though, have a height and effervescence and power that transcend any kind of human frailty, in my experience. And I am strongly guessing in yours too.
Why?
Because of the music that comes through you. You're a beautiful musician, so
Thank
um but the for real for in my experience, real confidence is when I put myself in the rightful relationship with the music, which is that the music is bigger than me.
you. You want to
That
do right by it.
allows what's that?
You want to do right by it.
I want to do right by it. I want to be honoring of it, and I want to enjoy it,
Yeah, yeah.
you know?
Like you forget once you get out of college and stuff, it's not a test at this point.
Uh-uh.
It's hard.
Right, right. It's actually really, really fun. And the thing, and it requires trust. There are just a lot of things that it requires. Um, there's a gospel choir that I've been playing with on and off for decades now.
Mm,
And there are so many times, like when we're touring, and it's been a while because we haven't toured. We certainly didn't tour during COVID, and we're getting back together in October of this upcoming October, but that'll be the first time in a long time. Um, but when we were touring, every night it would be different. Like the band, there would be kicks. Like if the leader would say, "Okay, hit me twice," would it be da, or would it be da, or would it be da, uh, you know? And the band, we were just like a flock of birds. Every night, it got to the point where we would just feel it together. It was always different every night,
and you'd all hit at the same time?
and we'd all hit at the same time.
Oh my God.
And that's that kind of humility, though. Like you've got to let, especially with that music, you've got to let go. It's like this combination. It's like playing violin. Like playing gospel is like playing violin to me.
Yeah.
So because for violin, I am not a good violinist. I actually really suck. But to write orchestrally, I have studied the violin so that I can aesthetically understand more how the color is created.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's why I've been studying it. Not to really be a violinist, because it's like fix your brakes kind of thing. But it's like, but to hold the bow on
Mm,
violin, it's a very zen thing. You
mm.
hold it, but you don't hold it. It's totally zen. It's like if you hold it too much, you're not going to get the sound.
Yeah.
It's a very do non-do kind of a thing, and it's the same thing with that kind of gospel. Like you're completely doing it, but you have to be completely open to letting it play through you.
Is there a conductor or a director?
Yeah, yeah.
So is somebody kind of cueing some of these things, or they're just letting you all go?
In theory, but when he's playing keys, he's not even facing us.
Right, right.
He's facing the audience. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is Eric Dozier. Like and there have been times like we've been on stage and he'd start a tune, or he would call out a tune that I have never heard in my life.
Mhm.
And I'm like, just Eric, what key? Just tell me the key. And he
Mhm.
would be talking to the audience and basically just in his bob that way. And you just have to fall into it, it you know. But that's what I mean about the beauty of the thing about being humanly like uh feeble, even in a way, is that
Pliable.
yeah, it kind of that's the crack in the human chassis that lets the universe play through you,
Yeah.
you know, if that makes any kind of sense.
If
I don't
that's
know if that does or
your
not.
if that's your thing.
It's kind of, well, that's my experience. There
Well,
are times when
but I
I,
mean,
I've I mean, I've played with musicians from India who are just impossibly talented, who know, like, I mean, their precision rhythmically is frightening.
yeah.
And there was a time I was playing a set with these musicians from India, like master musicians. I didn't know any of the songs, and they all had very intricate stops, like just crazy stops with different time signatures and all this. somehow I felt like a marionette, honestly. I was being played because I caught all of them and I'd never even heard it before.
That's cool. That's cool. What's probably your intention, and your desire.
Yeah,
And you're
and
tuned in. So
grace.
yeah, Grace,
uh,
safety
and
net.
yeah, and I mean, it's interesting going in this direction. That doesn't happen all the time,
Mm,
but I'm just saying, like, these are, but every time they have happened, they kind of had to happen because I was put on the spot.
right, right.
But what got me through it was understanding that the music is bigger than me, with that humility piece.
Yeah. And not everybody puts you on the spot. I mean, there are some musicians that that's their thing or that's their trip or whatever. And if that's fun, people will join in and have a go at it. If it gives you ulcers, you won't.
Oh yeah. Well, that's yeah. No, yeah. This is just to say though that I think that we're all really great safety experts, and that's a really important stage, and that's a very important thing to have within oneself. But also, creative innovation is going to require risks, and that's something that I certainly have had experience, a ton of experience with. Even, I mean, now I'm still. I mean, I'm taking a break. Like when we first started talking, I was saying, I'm taking a break, but that doesn't mean I'm not doing stuff. It just
Right.
means I'm not professionally engaged in projects right now.
Yeah, yeah. So what are you
Um,
doing?
shedding,
Nice. Yeah. Revisiting all the instruments you play.
yeah, just rudimentary shedding.
Nice. Feels good.
Triads.
Yeah, it feels good.
It does. It really. It's just a beautiful thing. Just to, the more I play or the more I write, the more take it
Realignment.
exactly. Taking simplicity.
Yeah. Now we were at Berkeley as students together, right?
Yeah, we were way back then when
Yeah.
in the day.
Yeah. And you graduated in 83,
I actually graduated in 85.
85.
So
Okay.
we weren't, maybe we were different.
Yeah, we overlapped. I graduated in
Yeah,
82.
yeah.
And then when did you start teaching there?
Mm, 97.
97. Now, what brought you to Berkeley to be a student there?
Uh, honestly, to be a student there, all right, I'm just
Yeah.
all right. I'll go there. The honest truth is I was in Colorado at the time,
Hmm.
working as a musician, studying forest biology, and I had a dream where I was told to move to Boston.
Nice.
And it was crazy in the dream. I mean, I actually wrote the whole dream down when I woke up and decided 6 weeks later I was going to move.
Wow.
And everybody out there thought I was nuts.
And did you know who was speaking or did it matter
Um,
who was speaking in the dream?
in the dream,
Yeah.
um, it was what I was shown. I actually drew a map, and it was what I drew actually was Mess Ave and Bealston, so I was close.
Wow. And those
Yeah,
names
no, it
came
was
from the dream.
yeah,
That's really interesting because those are
yeah,
like the only two streets we know.
yeah. Right.
Everybody, everybody goes, "You've been teaching there 40 years. You must know Boston really well." I'm like, "No,
No, not
Boston, Mass.
really.
The places keep changing on the street, so it's like a
Yeah.
new place."
Yeah. So I was told in this dream that it was time that I needed to learn how to really I needed to learn how to really read music because I was a musician,
Hmm.
but I didn't know anything academically at all.
And you were playing bass and what by then?
I was playing guitar at that point. I was not playing bass yet.
Nice.
I was
And
playing
so, were you
guitar.
accepted as a guitar player?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
How long?
then what
Yeah.
oh, go
How long
ahead.
did you spend in the guitar department?
About a year and a half maybe. But I always wanted to play bass. I mean, I just loved bass.
I know.
And so I decided to switch over. And then the best thing that could have happened, um, and this is actually something I think is really important to share
Okay.
because especially in this world, the way things are now, because people are, I'm sure you've seen this, like, in terms of students, there's a lot of really great energy. There's also a lot of anxiety these days with students, and non-students for that matter. You know, not having that perspective of if something quote wrong happens, it's not, there might be a golden ticket somewhere when
Mhm.
things don't go the way that you want them to. There just might be a
Oh
golden
yeah.
seed in there. So what happened to me was I was playing with Eddie Uribe, if you're the drummer.
I remember that name.
Yeah, great drummer. He passed on a few years ago.
Oh.
Great drummer. We were playing, and with, at the time, his wife Rachel, I forget her last name now. I think she played with Steps Ahead and Keena Keel on vocals, and I was playing bass, and we were playing Spain
Nice.
by Chick Corea, and I was playing the melody with the vocalist, and we were doing live to 2-track, and
Wow.
we were doing take after take after take, and then something happened, and my right hand just like turned to cold water. It was really scary.
Ooh.
I couldn't play.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that then led to, and I was in school at the time. So I went to all kinds of doctors. It was not carpal tunnel. It wasn't tendonitis. It wasn't anything,
Just overuse.
yeah. And then I it's like, so, and every time I tried to pick up an instrument, whether, because at that point I was also deep into keyboards also. So keyboards, guitar, bass, any drums, anything I tried to play, the wrist would feel okay for like maybe 2 seconds, 10
Mm.
seconds. And then the same thing would happen. And so there was a sports doctor who I went to who actually was a really arrogant kind of a guy. I did not really vibe with him at that level, but he ended up giving me the best advice. And
Really?
yeah. So he said, you just need to not think about this. Give yourself 6 months where you are not going to pick up an instrument.
Hmm.
So at that point, out of sheer desperation, there wasn't anything to do but to
Hmm.
listen to that.
Hmm.
That was the best thing I possibly could have done, because then that led to my mind asking me the questions: how can I stay involved in music
Hmm.
if I can never play again?
Hmm.
That led to composing. It's
Hmm.
like, well, I don't need to be able to play to compose,
Wow.
because I have my ears.
Right.
Even if I don't have the ability to play, I will always have my ears.
Right.
So I started taking composition courses. So I left the focus on from bass studies to composition.
Okay.
And that's when I just I started exploring scores, orchestral scores, just a whole, pantheon of different instruments. And it was the universe opening up. It's like, oh my God, this is amazing. I mean, worlds that I did not even know existed, really. I mean, I was aware of them, but never thought to be involved in them.
Yeah.
It was it was incredible. And then I was thinking, it was like, how can I make a living? This is amazing, absolutely amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
how can I make a living with this, though? What can I do with this? And there was a film scoring department. So I took a couple of film scoring classes, and it's like, how amazing to get inside the soul and the mind of a character or a
Mm-hmm.
scene,
Mm-hmm.
and to get into that place and then sonically support it through music. Like, what an amazing thing to do. So that's when I switched to film scoring.
Wow.
And that's what I've been doing now for decades, is film
Yes.
scoring.
I
But
know.
if I oh, the other thing is, as soon as I mean, it was interesting. As soon as I committed to film scoring, my wrist healed.
Ooh. Was it 6 months?
It actually was more than that.
Wow. And did
It was
did
more
you
than
really
that.
stick to the 6 months that you didn't play?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Yeah, I did, because I mean, I had been, I the situation had beaten me down to a pulp. Like there was
Oh,
nothing
that
to
would
be
devastate you.
willful.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was being very willful.
Mm.
It was really there were a lot of lessons in that humility, not judging a book by its cover, not dismissing like this doctor who I said was so arrogant. He really
Mm.
was arrogant. He was in completely dismissive of me when I told him I was a musician. He
Hmm.
was like, "Yeah, right." Because at the time, back then, there were not, and also a bass player,
Right. There aren't women musicians. Come on.
right? And the guy was totally of that ilk,
Mm.
like totally dismissive, totally, uh, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
just small.
There's a lot of that. Small.
Small. Just let's just say just to
A
call it
kind way
small.
of putting it.
Let's do that small. So, I immediately did not feel I didn't trust that part of him, and yet he also did give good advice. So that
Mm.
was a huge lesson for me in terms of even if you don't connect with somebody, it doesn't mean they don't have something to offer.
True. True.
Which I think in this world is really important because we're in a world now all over the world where it's like um it's been said the true mark of culture is the ability to agree to disagree, and I think that's something that we're losing sight of.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to be able to see value in or to be open to something being of value even if you don't initially see anything of value
Yeah.
is a really important characteristic which I frankly did not have up until that moment.
Yeah. There's infinite ways to be and to think and to live. And if you can figure out how to please yourself and not hurt yourself or someone else, you're okay.
Yeah.
When did the Bob Vila shows that I was recording for
Oh
you
my god.
happen? Were those some of the first film scoring, TV scorings you were doing, or
That was absolutely some of the first.
you were like recording in my living room or my studio or wherever the attic
Wherever
space?
we were back then. Yeah, wow, that was so long ago.
And
Jeez, forgot
recording to
about that.
tape too, which was great.
Yeah, exactly. Real tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a so basically what happened was the way that gig because that was my first break.
And you had that for a while
17-year run actually. So
with the Bob
royalties for
Vila
that
show.
Bob Vila,
Nice.
17 years of royalties, which I didn't even know I was due, but BMI called me.
Wow,
I mean,
fantastic.
so much of my career, it's been just kind of, I mean, things happened despite me. I mean, because I didn't know anything about anything. Um,
We
but
learn everything as we go.
what's that?
We learn everything as we go.
Yeah, we do. So I was newly out of school and I didn't have any gear. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have anything that you're supposed to have
As a film
um,
scoring
as a
person?
film scoring person.
Oh.
Um, and there was one morning I was washing my hair, and I just got this sudden hit to just call this person. Her name just kind of flitted into my brain, and she was a composer, a film composer, who actually was successful in the Boston area, and she was moving to New York.
Hmm.
And so I just got this hit to call her. So I looked up her, and I didn't even know her number. I didn't really have a connection with her. I just heard about this, and so I ended up calling her, and she said, "Oh, you know what? Why don't you call this producer? I work with him a lot, but I'm moving. I'm not going to have time to tell him that I told you to give him a shout." That's what led to the Vila thing. He was the director of the Vila show.
Nice.
Yeah. So
That's
that's how these things,
fantastic. Good
yeah.
thing you were washing your hair and got the hit.
Good thing I followed through on it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I heard a great
Yeah.
idea, but I let it go. It went down the drain.
Yeah. Well, how about you? Like, how did you start at Berkeley?
I heard about Berkeley when I was 11 and started using the William G. Levitt Modern Method guitar books when I was studying with Lou Sabini.
Wow.
I've been taking lessons for 2 years so far and went to that book, and I found out there was a college where you could just study guitar. I thought, man, I got to go there.
That's cool.
I know. It's a little insane now how long I've been there that I've wanted to be there since I was 11. It's like, huh. But I
Right.
would have gone to Berkeley wherever it was, in the world. It wasn't like I had my heart set on Boston or anything. I just wanted to be eat, sleep, drink guitar, and Berkeley was like the best place on earth for that.
That's really cool. Well, to have that drive.
Yeah, yeah. But I always
Yeah.
wanted to write my own songs and record and be able to arrange and play a lot of parts and invite friends to play parts. And
Hmm.
they didn't really have that as a major at that time. It was like
Right.
you're either a performance major, or did they even have film scoring in 1982? I'm not even sure if they had a
I don't
major.
even know. I mean, I
Might have
wasn't,
been, maybe just a
yeah,
select,
actually they did. Yeah, they did.
could have been just a select couple of courses and not necessarily a full major yet. Like I think MP&E became a major right in 78 or 82 or something like that. It was already too late for me to switch whatever. It's like I really just wanted to be performing my own songs. But it didn't jive with the guitar department because I wasn't jazz and I wasn't classical. So
Right.
to do my own thing was quite an uphill thing. But I didn't care. I just sort of closed this off, talking about my heart and soul here, and kept what I really believed to myself and just played the game, did the requirements, and then opened back up and used everything that I felt fueled me and made me supersonic, because I think the whole Berklee experience is just tremendous and what it does
Hmm.
to turn you into a really great musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that this is, I mean, we all, if we're really being true to ourselves, we all, it's going to require innovation for each and every one of us.
Every step of the way,
I
you
mean, no
know.
kidding.
You don't set it and forget it, that's for sure. I mean, you're
No,
reinventing yourself constantly.
constantly, constantly. It's the same thing. Absolutely. It's the same thing as a film composer also.
Yeah.
There isn't, every score is going to have a set of challenges that have never been confronted before.
Yeah. It
It's
might
just,
require different software or different whatever you've never done before too, and it's like hair
yeah.
pulling, you know?
I mean, it's there's that. Well, there's for me, there's the initial stage of like, you
Yeah.
know,
I'll never be
but
able to
then
handle
it,
this.
but then it opens up into, there really is a flow with it
Yes.
where, and again, it gets down to that humility. It's like, this is so much bigger than me. So
But
just,
break that down. Don't you have to sort of come back to your true self, like let your cork rise, and as soon as you're aligned and back in tune with yourself, then all of a sudden you start to see the possible way in, right? As soon as you start feeling your best, you can start assessing what needs to be done.
true. Well, absolutely. I mean, that's the start. That's
But see, like,
absolutely.
that's what, like, tell me more about that. Like, how do you look at the project and think, whoa, okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about this, but then what starts happening that you get inside it? Because this is the part that no matter how much we talk about the creative process, nobody else is inside our heads feeling the waves of those different pluses and minuses of I can and I can't. And then nobody sees what happens when all of a sudden there's a way in. Like what's clicking
Okay.
inside you or changing or
Okay. Well, all right. Taking it, there are so many different levels to this. There's so many different layers and there's so many different steps.
exactly
Okay. The first step in terms of when you're talking about that, like, whoa, that's okay.
fear.
Here, yeah, exactly. Absolute trepidation. Okay. The first step that I have learned over time is, oh yeah, that's fear. Okay, fine.
Yes,
I mean, you go through this enough where you just recognize it for what it is and you don't freak out over being freaked out.
right.
you know it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is going to happen. When my early days, I mean, this makes me sound like a total dinosaur. It's not like that, but when I
Well,
was
we've got a
first,
long time to go yet.
yeah, we have a ways to go, but like 3 decades back when I was first getting started,
Yeah,
what helped me back then was reading interviews of other composers who would talk about freaking out. And like one composer, I forget which one it was, an A-list composer at the time, would talk about how he would throw up every time he got a gig.
That's some
Like,
people would say that about going on stage too. Yeah.
and so just to understand, okay, it's not just me,
Right. Right.
you know, but okay, for me personally, like okay, I just finished a colossal, I mean, ridiculously colossal film score a couple of months ago.
Nice.
And it was a very dysfunctional schedule. It was not a beautiful film. I mean, a really beautiful film. But there was not enough time for the composer. And I was actually asking them, you need to hire another composer. I wrote all the thematic material, all the motivic work, all the harmonic progressions, all of this. I came up with the sonic palettes, all of this. I said, you need to hire another composer for this.
Wow.
It's too much. And what they said was, we only want, because they really liked what I was doing. And they said, we only want you. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't, and I actually did end up finishing it up, which was a miracle. I
No
mean,
wonder you're resting.
no kidding. I mean, yeah, no, it was crazy. But what I did in terms of getting centered for that, um, first is just the self-care piece. Am I physically healthy?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went to the ocean. That's what to prepare. My partner and I, we went to the ocean
Nice.
and spent about 10 days in this little beach house right on the sand. We get up or first thing in the morning and watch the sunrise over the water, like that kind of time,
That's a great time.
and that's for me personally, whenever possible. This isn't always possible. However, these are the priorities that I have in my life. And, what I've learned over time is when you prioritize something, no matter how impossible it's going to seem, it's going to be very likely to happen, but you have to make it that commitment.
Oh
So
yeah.
my commitment is, okay, I need to be really healthy. I need to get myself in nature and aligned with nature first. The nature of my body, the stuff of this body, it's made out of 5 elements. I need to go outside and connect with the elements out there to be attuned so that I am grounded in balance. Like grounded, really grounded is
Yeah.
important,
That
because also
for everybody. Whatever grounds you. Whatever.
whatever grounds you,
Yeah.
because also the creative process can also be very up here,
Yep.
somewhere. So the body needs to be grounded in order to be able to manifest it.
Am I earthed?
So yeah, before going off into orbit somewhere. But so for me personally, that tuning in, the first thing I do in preparing for a big score has nothing to do with the score at all.
Yeah.
It has to do with my health
Nice.
and taking care of that. And also, I have to say, for those, if anybody out there listening who is considering film scoring, I always negotiate for time as well as money,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
because I need time to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's imperative. And
Good.
that's what I find is like 9 times out of maybe 9.1, they always have more time, even although they initially tell you they don't.
Of course.
But because with the film industry, much of it can be very mismanaged. So they'll just throw together an arbitrary thing for music.
Yeah.
But nobody's really necessarily, I mean, this isn't true all the time, but a lot of the time, how well has this really been thought out? How much more time can you possibly? I mean, I did a National Geographic special for Jane Goodall a couple years ago
Right.
that they wanted it due on Christmas Day, which inherently I knew that's bullshit. Nobody works on Christmas Day.
Right.
Why Christmas Day? It turns out they didn't need music until February 11th,
Oh my goodness.
but they were adamant we needed Christmas. We needed,
They just wanted it off their list.
right, without thinking about, without
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah.
So anyway, but in terms of really tuning in, it's the self-care piece is first, and then taking the time to really tune into, in terms of a score, what is this story really? Who are these characters? What do
Mm,
they mean to one another? How
yeah.
are these characters in, or whatever the film happens to be?
Yeah.
Like, what is this really about? I'll spend, writing music is the last thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's really taking the time to really first be with self, then be with the story,
Mm-hmm.
then start to write.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the name of
And
this film?
what's that?
What's the name of this film that we could look forward to?
That last one was called Our Promise.
Cool.
And yeah, it's a really powerful documentary about soldiers, US soldiers who have died on foreign soil, and the their, some of their life stories, and deep deep stuff from World Wars One to you know it's, there's a lot in there. It's pretty deep.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway,
And so one cool gig leads to another.
yeah, yeah. It's a combination of um networking, continuing to network, and then but a lot of times, yeah, just calls will come in just kind of out of the blue.
Mm.
That happens a lot for me.
And then how are you actually going about composing? How much thought goes into it that's technical, theoretical versus emotional. It feels right. I'm following a melody by ear.
um
It's different all the time, but like, can you give us some examples of some of the things that have come out of you that you go, this was a cool way that happened?
all of it.
Yeah, I know. I feel that way too.
Honestly, all of it. I mean, I don't, the intellectual stuff comes in terms of working with different, creating mock-ups, working with different libraries, and how am I going to layer this, and
Mm,
how am I going, the technical thing of, to add that realism, if I'm not already working with live players, or it's
mm-hmm.
a hybrid scores. There are a lot of hybrid scores these days where it's a
Sure.
combination of synth and live.
Yeah.
But it's all intuition, honestly. I don't really, it's not so much of a logical process for me. I
Right. Me
mean,
neither.
yeah, it's
Logical
getting
later when you have to write it down for other people, but
right. That's where the logic comes in, exactly. But the actual creative process is really intuitive.
were you writing on guitar then before you even came to Berklee?
Um, yeah, I wasn't even regarding it as writing though, because
I make stuff up.
I make stuff up.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's what it all
way
started.
back in that day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I didn't consider myself as like writing stuff. I was just more like playing stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I find, especially with a lot of my songwriting students, if they started writing before they understood what they were doing, they still feel like they write the same way, and that's fine, because that's like the way humans write. It's how we all write.
Yeah.
That's how
Right.
creativity happens in a musical sense,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And yet everybody's creative. Everybody's a human being, so they've got it somewhere and they're using it for something. We use
Right.
it for everything.
Right. I think also, I mean, there's the meat and potatoes of just craft, you know. As a musician, it's just important to have some sense of chops,
Mm,
um, knowing your way around the keyboard or the fret, or whatever the instrument happens to be. There needs to be the craft element. um
ability.
Ability, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
A tool that you can express yourself with.
Right. But then from that point forward, I think that it's just really important. There's another aspect of just letting go. And this is something that either it's very difficult to describe because it's an experience of something. But this is again, it's about if the music being greater or bigger than oneself. Um, for me personally, what's the most important in terms of the film scoring work, in terms of the musician work, in terms of being an author, whatever, it's to contribute something to this world, you
Mm,
know, so that this world is better. It's an attempt to bring something into this world to help improve things. That's the incentive for me. And that incentive brings ideas for me personally.
yeah.
That just that commitment, that incentive in and of itself invites ideas that I wouldn't have thought of beforehand.
Oh, cool.
So it's not a this is why it's so hard to explain, because how to describe inspiration is a very difficult,
Mm.
you know I mean, it's just such a wonderful thing when it actually comes.
I thought at
um
first you were explaining how to get into the zone, even.
right.
Because that feels almost like a place or a special room or an energy field that I love being in.
Right, exactly. Well, that is what it is.
I like the unknown. I like sitting there with a blank piece of paper or a blank manuscript piece of paper or a blank piece of recording or whatever it's going to be, and an instrument that I'm not sure even where I'm going to start. And I love figuring out, is it happening from a title? Is it just something I heard in a movie? Do I have a phrase in mind? Did I just hit a chord that I'm crazy about? Am I trying a new alternate tuning? What's happening?
Mm,
How am I getting into this thing? And as soon as I start feeling that excitement and that different energy around me, and then this will give me goosebumps, I just start following these trails of
right.
deliciousness, and these things start to pop up, and I just see what I can do with them. But I don't have too many serious expectations with them at that point. I'm just enjoying them and letting them grow.
Right. I think that for me, what I've learned in terms of with film scoring, that's because you have to, with film scoring,
You have a target.
you have you have to be in the zone. There's
Yeah,
no choice other than to be in the zone.
yeah. But you have something that you already have, like the prompt as to where it has to go.
Absolutely. Um, but the again, it gets down to like being fully immersed in the story, being in relationship with the story itself.
Mm,
The story is the zone,
definitely. Yeah.
right? And then from that place, I mean, I've learned more about characters from the score that comes through,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know?
Yeah, because
Um,
you're filling in the cracks of the dialogue and the story. You're putting in the heart element and the soul element and the real lifeblood of it, so that the actors are almost buoyed in a way that the whole thing is coming together now.
right,
Because the music starts making people feel things before we even know what's going on.
true. Because the scene itself is only it's a relative snapshot in that character's life,
Yeah.
but the background of that life is what gives that scene meaning,
Yes, yes, yes. I love that.
right? And that background is supported by the score.
Yes. And
So,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, all right. There was an amazing film, a documentary that I scored many years ago at this point. What was the name of it? Oh, I think Fred's Holiday, and it was about this guy named Fred who was falsely incarcerated, basically for being mentally retarded. He was in a sweatshop for almost 70 years.
Oh my God.
This was in Connecticut. So this is documentary. He got out and took a trip to Rome. And this film is about his trip to Rome.
Wow.
The director, a guy named Eric Nudell, sat down with me. Now, this was a short documentary, it's 30 minutes. He talked to me about Fred's character for 5 hours straight.
Did you take time out for meals and stuff?
Yeah, we had, yeah. Yeah, I actually had dinner over at his place.
I'm
Yeah.
Italian. It's all about the food, please.
Yeah, food's included in this with this gig. It's pretty cool. Yeah, you definitely chow down. Um, so I learned so every nook and cranny about this character's life that was never none of this stuff was on screen. But
No, no.
because I had that background,
Yeah,
the music itself was able to carry the insight of that background,
exactly.
right?
Do you?
So
Go
the
ahead.
score is filling in all of those other gaps.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
when you have something coming up, let's say, like I heard another film scorer say this, if he's playing a piece of music and it's coming up where all of a sudden something scary is going to happen, there's going to be a gigantic loud sound from the orchestra, let's say. He doesn't even put it on the same piece of music that the players are looking at currently. He makes it the beginning of the next
Next cue. Yeah.
cue because he doesn't want them to get all tense seeing that it's coming, bearing up to get loud instant, because he feels like the energy of the musicians will give it away to the people watching in the theater. They'll feel it with the preceding notes.
Yeah.
Were they teaching you things like that in film scoring too, to put it in the next cue so that the
No,
musicians
that's just
don't give it
something you
away?
do. Um,
But is that something you've done?
that was never taught. That's just something you know, the more you do it, you understand that, you know,
You start to hear
how
that
to
it's
work with the
happening.
players to get the energy that you're seeking.
Yeah, and you got to stay calm. Don't even anticipate that thing because you're not supposed to know about that yet.
Right, exactly. I mean, you can also if the players are really good, they can also be directed. You know, it's like
Yeah,
don't you can say to your players, do not give it away.
yeah. Don't look at it.
You know, don't give it away. This is, in fact, understate it. Like there have been times when I've said to, you know, in an instance such as that, there, you know, it hasn't been a, I haven't, there have been a couple of instances where I've said, just underplay it here so that you're not giving it away,
Hmm.
you know.
Wow.
So that's just another way of you know, achieving the same end.
Yeah. Now, has
Mhm.
conducting been a big part of this for you? Do you do all your own conducting?
Yes. And COVID really, you know, changed a lot
Yeah.
for that. Because it's just been then it became so much a matter of remote recording.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I love conducting. It's really fun. You
That's
know,
cool.
it's because then then I become the director
Mm.
and the musicians become the actors.
Yes. Sure.
You know, like
Yeah.
I what I love to do in, you know, working with musicians, I always show them the scene that they are playing on
Oh,
before
good.
we record.
So they can start feeling what they're supposed to feel.
Absolutely, they're a part of the film.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
what Burt Bacharach used to do. He used to even put the lyrics underneath the horn parts so that the horn players could understand what they're supposed to feel while they're playing their part.
exactly.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah,
Well, you're
yeah,
trying to get everybody to be on the same page, or
exactly.
at least in the same room.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
well, yeah,
please
no
come
kidding,
back.
right?
Don't go on
But
vacation yet in your head because we're still here.
yeah, no, it's really important to describe the nuances of the scene to the musicians. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really important. There was one cue that again, this was a long time ago. There was a scene from this it was an HBO film, and another honky tonk girl says she will, which is just a
I remember that
way
title.
long type, right? And so it was the final scene of the film, and I handed out the parts to the string players, and it was E flat above, like a minor 10th above middle C. It was E flat tied footballs for 25 bars. That's all it was. It was
Whoa.
one note for
For,
25 bars, and
for
it
the
was just
strings.
strings. Yep.
They can keep that going.
Yep. And they looked at me like, what are you, what, you know? you know,
Oh, great. Footballs indefinitely.
right, exactly,
Thanks so much.
right. It's like, oh, so happy to be here. So, but there were dynamics within that,
Sure.
but it was just one note. And I explained the scene to them. I said, look, the reason this works, the reason this is going to work is because the scene itself, there was a woman, a young woman, really well acted, well shot scene, blue light. This woman was slowly, it was the end of a gig. She was a musician in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She was slowly looking at herself in the mirror, taking off her makeup and slowly realizing, oh my God, I have become my mother. I have done everything with my life that I was adamant I would never become.
Oh, no.
And she just realized that she had repeated the cycle.
Oh, wow.
So it was, and she's still young, so she could, certainly turn it around. But it
Yeah.
was a moment of like real inner truth telling.
Hmm.
And I rewrote that scene about 5 times, each time taking out more and more, just sculpting, like
Oh.
less and less. And I find sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes when I'm scoring a scene, um, it's really like being a sculptor, just taking out to the bare minimum of what's needed.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it finally got down to just one note. That was the fifth version. I was like, this is the one that's going to work. And it took a bit of convincing to the director.
Hmm.
But they said, okay, go ahead and just, try it.
Yeah.
But it was perfect because it didn't go anywhere. It was just like her. She was
Yeah.
stuck.
Yes.
And
Yes.
she was trying to move forward and she just did not know how.
That's
So
awesome.
this one note, because it needed to resolve, it needed to go somewhere, and because it wouldn't, it was the perfect tension builder.
How did you
Because
think of it?
what's that?
How did you think of it? Like you said, you were sculpting and taking things out. Was that note in there?
No, it was another
Yes.
approach.
Yeah, that was a whole other approach.
It
So,
was just another approach. I mean, it
do you remember
was
some of the thoughts that led up to how you came up to that choice? Was it
it
what you
was
just
it was
described?
it was getting to know her. It wasn't thinking. It
Yeah, it
was
was
it
like,
was
how
feeling
does it?
into her.
Yeah, you
It
feel
was
stuck and there's no, yeah.
yeah, like if something's not going anywhere, then why would a note go anywhere? You know what I mean?
That's
It's like
like,
it,
yeah,
it,
things have to make sense.
right. And so but it had to be poetically done because if it were just literal, then it really wouldn't have worked.
I
But
know, isn't
like
it interesting how some things become really corny if they become that kind of typical thing, and some things are just so perfect that you just go, wow, that
right.
just nails it.
But I think it's the ability to really empathize with what's really happening within the inner life of the scene. Because if
Yeah.
it's just describing something like, oh, this is tense, so therefore I'm going to put tremolo. Well, you know, yeah,
Don't make the
right.
opposite. Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
you know what I mean? Because if it's
right.
just like stock, reaching for something, being a parrot,
Yeah.
then, that's going to be, subpar.
No,
But
in
if it's
terms,
from the inside out, though,
yeah,
it's,
well, you can't
it's,
argue with that really. You know,
yeah,
that's actually felt and experienced, then people relate to that. That's really
yeah,
well put. Um, you were talking about notation or dynamics and things. I
yeah.
always felt like there weren't enough directions in the language of written music to even get to the details that I want a player to play sometimes. How do you get from them what you actually need when, in some ways, that notation is limited?
That's a really good question. Um,
Do you sing it for them?
part of it is technical. Part of it for me, I mean, as a conductor,
Yeah,
part of it is understanding the instrument so well that I understand how sound is created.
yeah.
Like, so for example, if a staccato for strings is not tight enough,
Mm.
I know because I have been studying the instrument, I know now I can say I can say to my players, just pinch the bow more.
Oh, cool. Yeah,
You know
you
what I
have
mean?
sound. Yeah, sure.
So part of it is craft in that kind of a way,
Oh,
you
that's really
know?
cool.
So that's part of so that requires study on my part, you
Knowing
know,
what's possible.
knowing what's possible. I'm constantly needing to study, like
Wow.
constantly, if I'm depending on what
Yeah.
instrument I'm going to be working with, I have to understand at least something about that instrument or I'm useless, it's
Well,
not going
it's
to,
almost infinite for every instrument. So yeah, you've got a lot to keep.
there's always,
That's awesome.
but this is also, there's a way to shorthand it where, I do have musicians who I can call upon
Mm.
and say, hey, will you play through this part and tell me,
Ooh.
as from your standpoint,
Ooh,
what is
that's
it
good.
that, what can I, what makes this playable? What makes it difficult?
Mm.
To get more of this kind of sound that I'm looking for, how would you want to be told?
Oh, that's awesome.
You
That
know,
is really smart of you.
yeah, well, I don't know if it's, I mean,
Help me.
yeah, help. Yeah, that's what I mean about always being a student, though,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
because, but this is also, and this gets down to that whole humility thing again, you
Well,
know,
yeah, because if you feel like you know it all, you won't ask and you won't really get to the what you need.
right, exactly. And also, there can be this thing like posturing, like, well, I should know this.
I know, and that's a drag.
That's so stupid because it's
I
like, I
know.
don't know this. I just don't. Okay. I don't. So will
Yeah.
you please help me? You
Well,
know?
that's why I wish well, I think this is why we can create our own atmospheres. Like when we work together or when we have people that we handpick, the
Yeah.
mutual understanding is mutual respect, mutual love and admiration, most of the time if you know somebody well.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it's polite and inviting and welcome, and you're the perfect person for this. I'm not judging you. There are no grades. This is
Right.
about trying to do the best thing for the music. And
Right.
I want your ideas and I want you to, take in some of my ideas and let's get there together. If there could
Right.
be this thing where I'm not judging you and you're not judging me or looking down on me or thinking that I'm looking down on you, then we're okay. But it's trying to get past all of our freaking hangups to just get to what is fun about being together and what we're trying to accomplish.
Screw that.
That takes a lot of willingness
It
and
does.
trust.
And it's a paradigm shift though, too.
Mm.
Because, it's what the way that I'm hearing what you're talking about, this is the cooperative model, not the competitive model.
Yes, yes, I've never even heard that it put as a thing, but I've never been part of the competitive model. I don't understand it. I don't
I don't
participate in it.
I don't
It never
either.
did anything for me.
I don't either, and it's something that, in film scoring, I can be up against that quite a bit. It can be a very competitive, not in school, because in school I insist on the cooperative learning. It's
Mm.
not competitive at all. I don't care if you're a quote burning writer. I could really care less about that. It's like, are you writing from your heart? Do you care about this topic? Like,
Mhm.
what are you, how are we working together to contribute to this film?
You can
Period.
tell when it's thrown away. You can tell when someone's just egoing out on something or it's all in their head.
Right, exactly. And the
That's
thing
the
that's
wrong
really
energy.
right. And I have to say also, I mean, just in terms of just the industry and the world, et cetera, there are a lot of structures that are really falling apart now. And it's a great thing because now there's more room for this kind of thing that we're talking about,
Yeah, Carly Simon, there's more room in a broken heart.
you know?
So we can rebuild it.
Yeah, exactly. Because what never worked, what doesn't work, never worked, can't work, and now no longer works. So, it's really not really, it's not supported anymore.
Ah, well, what kind of competition are you encountering?
Okay, well, all right. For example, there was a gig that I got. Now this is with a filmmaker who I work with quite a bit. I'm going to be working with him again this upcoming spring. Great filmmaker, but very, very competitive vibe. Like when he first hired, well, okay, now I really pursued him.
Mm-hmm.
One of his producers called me, who knew me and knew that I score films, and told me, look, this guy's getting ready to score this film. He doesn't know who you are yet. you are the person who you have to score this. You have to be the one to score this.
Nice.
So just get on his radar. So I learned about the film. I was really interested in it. And I was obnoxious. I was calling him like, you know, hey, my name's and I score films and I hear you have this film and I would really be interested in. I mean,
Yeah.
I came on really strong in a way that I normally don't.
Huh.
Um, but this was a known gig without a composer yet.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go for this. It got to where he said to me, if you stop calling me, if I give you this gig, will you stop calling me?
I love it.
And
I
I
love
said, yeah, that sounds fair. That's cool.
The next best scenario of that is, I'm so sorry I haven't gotten back to you. I feel so bad. What can I do to make this up to you? Okay, okay, I'll hire you.
Right, exactly like that.
I've had that happen.
That happened to you? Okay.
Yeah, it's
So,
like, well, you were the first person I thought of because they're just trying to make up for lost time.
right, yeah, exactly. So, then it came time though for me to meet with the team, with the editor and the producer and
Hmm.
the director, the way that it works. And this was the competitive part
Oh,
because they really wanted Mark Isham. They wanted another composer from LA to score this. And apparently he was unavailable. And the director kept saying to me, you're not our first pick. And I'm like, why in the hell would you say that to someone on your team?
yeah,
Why would you possibly say that to someone on your team when the team is what is going to make this film work?
yeah.
What I mean, it was such an ego-y, and then the editor looked at me because I'm a woman. I found out later it wasn't any huge surprise to me, but I was the first woman composer they'd ever seen,
Oh my God.
right? And the
Here we go
editor
again.
looked at me and said, well, we'll see who's got the big guns. That direct quote.
Wow.
Oh no, bullshit. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
So I went home after that meeting, like, I don't even want this gig now. Like, this is
Of
just,
course. Yeah, yeah. This is
bullshit.
how
I
it's
don't,
going to be. Yeah.
but it's like, okay, but here I am. And the film still is, in spite of these people, the film is a good one.
Mm.
And I just put all the bullshit down and just wrote from my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, to the director's credit, when I submitted that first cue later that week, from that moment forward, he became one of my biggest advocates.
Nice.
Like he totally changed his tune, like completely. Like he was just
You blew him
incredibly,
away.
yeah.
Yeah.
But all I did was work,
Yeah. You
you know.
you created the space to say, listen to what I have, and he actually listened and heard you.
And I did not write in a competitive way.
No.
I wrote in like what you're talking about, the cooperative way. Let's work together because even although they were doing what they were doing,
Mm.
my commitment always when I'm working on a film is let's work together to make this thing be the greatest contribution it can possibly be.
Yeah.
So adhering to that, the music came out from that place.
Good.
And the thing that was amazing, to the director's credit, I'm not going to say his name right now, given what I just said about him before. I'm not gonna. I think that might be a mistake. Um, but to his credit, he really truly turned around
I'm
and
so
was
happy to hear that.
yeah, I mean, he was amazing. The editor also, I mean, they don't work together anymore, but they
Okay.
still individually continue to call me for stuff.
Oh, good. It's double the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
You win.
Yeah. Whew, hopefully we all do. Yeah.
But um, do you think they were doing it on purpose, thinking that they were goading you to give them your best work? Because some people think they get the best out of people by beating them up. They don't get the best out of me that way.
I think that I think that it's a combination. I think that there's some real truth to that. I do know some directors who think that bullying is the way to get their
I'll
team
show
to work.
you. I'll just give you the best damn thing you've ever heard. You know.
Yeah, no, I think that I think that there was some truth to that, but I
I
think
wouldn't.
that but
I would.
that
Yeah.
still harks of that still goes along with that competitive thing. I don't.
Well, it's worse. It's compounded with the woman thing. So
Yeah, it's real bullshit. But
absolutely.
um, I over time, well, there's something else that happened. Um, Before that, somebody actually stole my work and put it on their demo.
Whoa.
Yeah. And this was from a producer. I mean, this is the kind of stuff, this does not happen very often,
Mm,
but I think that it's something just in keeping with what you're talking about, though, in terms of, I think for those of us who know better, it's for us to do better. And then every cream always rises to the top, you
mm,
know? So even if there's, really insidious ego, bleh, misogynist
mm-hmm.
stuff, to just stay true to oneself in terms of, um, I'm going to stay grounded. I'm going to come from my center,
Mm,
right from this zone. I'm going to, regardless of the political static
mm-hmm.
that's around me, um, I'm going to find my zone,
Right.
stay there, and I'm not going to write until I get there. And
Mm,
then write from that place. It really does uplift everyone. That's what I've
yeah.
found. I mean, it's a transforming force.
Yeah. Like that Irish saying that the high tide raises all boats.
Yeah. Huh.
But
Like
it
that.
always amazes me at how many people are credited on a film.
Mm.
It is a ton of people having to work together, and that is a lot of asking for cooperation. That's a
Yeah.
lot of changing of gears to try to support a single vision or a wider vision. I'm
Yeah.
really not even sure how that works because I'm so used to doing so many things by myself and finishing something sometimes by myself. And now
Yeah.
these days, even in popular music, there's a lot of co-writing that includes almost 17 people from one pop song.
Yeah.
And from what it sounds like, it doesn't even take that much. It's like, did it really take 17 people to write that? Because,
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
I'm not 17 people strong impressed.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so if every time you add another cook to the kitchen or another backseat driver, is it really getting any better? How do films do it versus what I'm just describing as I don't know how they do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, no,
And maybe
that's
it's
a
because
good
there's so
question
many
too.
different jobs to get the film over the
There are
finish
so many
line.
different jobs. I think that
Yeah.
the thing that, although but from a creative standpoint, for the aspect that I'm familiar with,
Yeah.
um, I have gotten to where I actually enjoy collaborating more than just doing the solo thing, unless it comes to writing a book, that's different.
Mm,
Um, but musically speaking, um, what I have found is like working with a director, because it really is a collaboration. Like
mm.
it's the film composer's job to fulfill the director's vision, really.
Sure. Yeah, that's what you're hired for.
Right. And so, but there's great creative contribution. What I've learned is when I'm working with a director who really has vision, if there's a disagreement, that's gold.
Really? Good.
Yes, ma'am. That is gold.
And the wheels
And it
really
took
start
me
turning.
yep, it took me a number of years to really to get to this. But
Cool.
the sparks that especially if it's a passionate disagreement,
Yeah.
and you have to really respect there needs mutual respect to passionately disagree,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because if there's not the mutual respect, then it can become something else, which
Mm,
fortunately I don't really experience, but I've heard about other stuff.
mm-hmm.
But if you're working with a director or an editor or a producer whoever you're in the position of really collaborating with. Um, and there's a passionate disagreement. Those sparks that fly are full of innovation.
Wow.
So it's it's friction, it's necessary friction. So,
Combustion.
it's especially when, again, when there's mutual respect and when it's not coming from ego. If it's coming from real artistic passion, as opposed, if it's ego-y, then forget it.
Yeah.
That's just junk. But if it's coming from a real artistic passion, there's all kinds of innovation that can come out from that.
Do you have an example?
Um, there was a scene for a director that we really disagreed on the emotional impact on a scene, even though it was his film, right? But given everything that he had described about this character, what he was asking for from this scene involving this character seemed to be a real contradiction from everything else he had said.
Hmm.
And I didn't think it was going to work. And he was really adamant that it was going to work. And we really like, poof, but in a loving way. It's not, it wasn't a passionate artistic disagreement is really rooted in love. It's love for the art form, it's love for the film. It's not love for the ego.
Hmm.
And
But isn't it love for your own idea? Which could kind of
um
get into the ego.
uh passion about the character, I would
Okay,
say.
good.
Not no, there's a difference, because I know, like, if the way I feel it in my body, if it's
Mm.
coming from an ego-y place, there's a tightness in my body.
Hmm. I'll have to reach for that and see if that's how it feels for me next time.
Yeah, like, if I mean, it can
Yeah.
feel like hot, and I want to interrupt,
Yeah,
kind of, in
yeah.
a way, like if it's an ego-y thing, if there's a,
Okay.
then there can be a shortness of, not so much of a willingness to really hear out somebody else,
Yeah.
that
I'm
the ego
breathing,
is,
I'm getting hot.
the ego is really great at just eclipsing, because it has to, you know, do
Exert.
what the ego does. But when it's an artistic thing, for me, it's different. Um,
How so?
it's just it's out of love for the story or the character.
Hmm.
It's not about me.
Yeah.
You know,
I remember
it's
there was a part in Paul McCartney's oratorio where he wanted to give somebody a really big note on the word peace, and he's going live in peace. He wanted it to be real Roy Orbison, and he was just so proud of having written this thing. And the singer said to him, "But it's peace. I want to go live in peace." He wanted to bring it down there, and Paul's like, "Oh, but that was his big note, like I want to get the
right,
singer the big note." But he let him do it because he came around to his idea of, oh, okay, it's peace. All right, sure. But he's still like,
right,
I want him to have the big Roy Orbison note. Like a
yeah.
great
Well,
idea, but the wrong place.
right, exactly. Well, it's good to try it out. So and that's basically what happened with
Yeah.
in terms of this scene with this director, is that I wrote it both ways.
Oh, really? Good.
Yeah, and then
Was one way yours and one way his?
yeah,
And then which way got it?
it was kind of a combination. Well, let's take this from yours and let's take this from mine.
That's fantastic because I've heard Tori Amos say that. She's like, I'll write 7 bridges for one song and see which let the best bridge win.
Yeah,
It's like, what? You
totally.
can do that? That's so cool. So when
Yeah,
I had trouble with a bridge, I wrote like 3 or 4 different bridges, but I did exactly what you just said. I took like the best moments of each bridge and made a fifth bridge. And that was the one I kept.
right. Which is really common in film. Like, writing multiple versions is like really, really common.
Wow. Do you run across that thing where they'll play your film for a test audience and let them decide what should be the best ending and everything?
No,
Sounds like a
fortunately, I'm not. Or actually, no, there was one film, but no, they went through that phase before they brought me in.
So they've decided what's keeping. But did they listen to what the audience said?
Depending on what the film is. I mean, in this film, it was with The Prison Within, which is a really powerful documentary that I scored
Mm.
right before COVID. I that one I would really recommend. I mean, it's so beautiful, and it really it questions. Um, it's a full length, feature length documentary, um, about convicted murderers in San Quentin dealing with their own trauma and
Whoa.
how they completely, when they have a chance to deal with what they've been through, how they transform. I mean, there's so many extraordinary twists and turns in this film. It's beautiful. It's there's
Cool.
it's won several awards. Very, and I say that. I mean, a lot of films I've worked on have won awards, but I don't really talk about that part. But for this film, I will, because it adds, you hear awards, it adds credibility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's a beautiful compassion based film. It's amazing. So
Cool.
for that film, they did have test audiences, um, for the final edit,
Mm.
but that was before they brought me in.
I guess it's not always a commercial decision, but in some ways it feels like asking all those people what they think. I mean, you could ask infinite people and always get a different answer. I don't think there's ever been going to be a consensus on things. So is it
True.
really going to be just to see how many tickets they can sell, or is it really the best ending?
Well, I don't think there's one set answer for that, because there are different motives with different
Or for
films.
either, yeah.
But I think, but in the case of The Prison Within, they did have test groups because they had concerns about things coming across in one way or the other, and they wanted to know if that was translating.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I
So
guess if
that's,
you're doing the
yeah.
best bridge from several bridges, you might be doing the best ending from several different perspectives as well.
Yeah. I think, I mean, because if the point of a film is to reach people,
Yeah,
if it's to touch and to inspire people,
yeah.
then if there's a questionable element in the film, then, you know, um, they just want to get some feedback because they're so close to it.
Well, the reason I'm asking is because I haven't done a ton of collaborating. And I
Uh-huh.
guess my
Uh-huh.
ego would get in the way thinking I have the best high note for Roy Orbison or something. And it might
Yeah.
be better to compromise a little bit or to realize that the greater good or the better good for all is something else.
I think, I mean, it's really interesting because it depends on one's distance from one's own work.
Mm.
I mean, that's my experience of it anyway. Um, can I mention my book here?
Mention anything. Yeah, I was going to
All right.
mention your amazing jellies because I thought that sounded beautiful and it didn't even have
Oh,
a film. Oh no, it did have a film. It kind of had a film because it had
it
a
had fish.
it had visual.
It had fish.
Fish team. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, thank you.
But yeah, you're
Um,
also an author and you've got this amazing website. I was just on it. It looks so cool. I love the
yeah,
design.
thank you. That's Lucy Little, who
I
is
saw.
yeah, she's an amazing web designer. It's completely because of her,
Yeah.
because I've never, all this time, I have not had a website ever. And there are all these different things I'm involved in, with humanitarian work and da 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 da.
I know she made
And
it look interesting and good. Like it wasn't like, how could she do all these different things? It actually looks really inviting and cool and it shows
yeah,
the amazing artist that you are, which I really love to see. I thought it looked
well,
beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, that's completely because of Lucy Little. She was, I kept saying to her, it just, how somehow all of this information needs to be presented in a way that's just really simple and clean,
Mm-hmm. Yes,
just
it
not
looks.
cluttered, you
Yes,
know.
it's
And
very clean.
yeah, that her work, that's her brainchild. So I really, all
But
credit
also,
goes to her.
but also, it makes all that you're doing have a professional place to be visualized. It's like
Yeah,
when you spend a lifetime doing what you've been doing, you are pro at all these things, and it's nice to see it all there, and it's nice to
yeah.
see it all supporting your vision of keeping it clean but looking really pro. So yeah, I thought it looked awesome
Oh, thank you.
and
Yeah.
impressive of what you've been up to.
Um,
But I just saw it today. I was asking you to be on this before. Now I really want you to be on it.
right. Yeah, there's a lot on there. I think, the one thing, and this is just, for me, personally, the whole point of having awards, I'm great. Awards to me, I, in a lot of ways, I really agree completely or resonate with what Prince said about awards. It's like the music is a success as soon as it's created.
Sure.
What happens beyond that is just what other people do with it. It has no bearing on the music itself,
Yeah.
you know. And that's I feel that way about awards. They don't really, I mean, I have some trophies there. Honestly, they're in my closet. I don't even have them out. I
I
just,
have some fake Grammys over there.
oh, do you?
They're from a 3D printer. I bought them on Etsy.
Cool. There you go. Shazam.
Shazam.
You know, I think the reason that awards are valuable is because they add credibility, you know.
Yeah, they mean
Um,
something to other people, but your validation is from the inside.
yeah, my validation is like, is there anything that I've done that has inspired someone or made someone's day easier?
Mm.
That to me is the ultimate success, honestly. That's me personally. But in terms of as a teacher, the awards come in really handy
Oh,
because if I want to talk about higher consciousness,
mm.
I if I don't have big awards, I would just sound like a granola ad to them. You know what I mean?
So how does that play out? How's Give me an example of the granola ad and then give me an example of the
Well, just in terms of, okay, like if I say to a student, you are here to use your voice to, you know, you are you're meant to be here. You're on this earth for a reason.
right.
And your talent, you don't know who you will be helping. It's not your business to know who, but
Exactly.
you will be improving this world by offering your talent in a good way.
Mm.
Just something as fundamental as that. When it's said just by somebody off the street, it's like, okay, well, that sounds nice, maybe, or it might sound flaky depending on where somebody's coming from.
Okay.
But if you say, okay, well, this person has all these different awards and is saying this, then it's like, huh,
Maybe they know
maybe it's
something.
maybe they know something,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So in terms of being an ambassador in a way for a higher consciousness,
Mm.
the worldly awards come in really handy.
Yeah.
But honestly, to me, they're just props.
Yeah. Well, they're just people deciding to get together to do something nice like I wanted to do for you today. They're just
Yeah.
it's like, "Hey, would you be on this? Because I know you'd have a lot of good things to share." And
Yeah.
it's just someone else's opinion as to, who should get this thing or who shouldn't, but it's just as made up as this podcast is made up. So you can make up your own awards, but you should just make up and look back and credit your successes in some way. I mean,
Yeah.
as a creator, it's so easy to just keep moving forward that you don't look back at your successes and even just appreciate that it took 2 years to finish this and it's done and it's so good. It's what you wanted it to be, you
It's
know?
true. It's true. It's important to kind of kick back and take stock and
Yeah.
have that kind of overview in a way. But there was something that you had asked about, the collaborative process, and you were saying, well, I don't know if I would want somebody to change my note. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Right.
What I've learned for myself, because okay, my book. So I wrote a book. It took me 30 years to write this book, right?
Right.
And I released it um when during 2020, like during lockdown.
Yeah. That's when you sent it.
Yeah, but I was not I wasn't in a position to work with an editor until I had already until I had finished it and put it down for a couple of years and let it cool off because I was so attached to my ideas with it
Yeah.
that anything anyone would have said about any revision or anything I would have rejected right off the bat because I
Yeah. It would
was
have
so
been too
close to
soon
it.
to hear it. Yeah.
So after putting it down for a while and realizing like um then it that kind of distance allowed me to have a more open mind if suggestions were made in terms of making some revisions on things which made it a much better book.
Cool.
So I'm just saying in terms of the collaborative process,
Mm.
I think it really depends, at least for me, it depends on how close am I to my ideas,
True.
you know.
One aspect of it for sure.
Yeah, that's one aspect of it.
Yeah.
But there's the other thing too. It's like if you really feel conviction, like, no, this has to be like this,
Mm-hmm.
then as part of the collaborative process, like, okay, well then that's going to be like that.
Yeah. So in situations or circles you've been in, is it almost that the person who has the most passion for something gets their way?
Um,
Because it doesn't always mean that the loudest person has got the best idea.
yeah, no, that's a good point. No, what I have found in my experience is that the collaborators who I love to work with the most are the ones who are always willing to at least try somebody else's idea out,
Mm.
so that then you can tell after,
Yeah.
I think it gets into dangerous territory. It's like, no, that idea is not going to work without even trying it.
Trying it. Yeah.
Then, you know, for working relationships, in my experience, that's never going to work, because that just, then somebody's going to close down.
Does anybody in all the different facets of the work that has to be done to finish what you do for a film,
Yeah.
do they can get to a point where they can say we're off the clock? This is the budget, but we're going to finish this and get it right. Either studio time or your writing or the recording or it's the same as studio, um, syncing to tape or whatever's got to happen. Do they, or is there always this pressure of we're on the clock and we can't try all these ideas? Because sometimes you hear people say, yeah, well, just run it again. Let's try that idea. I know it's extra tape. Throw on another reel or cue up another camera. We're going to try it this way as well. Like if they're that open-minded, they won't mind spending the extra.
Um, I have worked with directors like that.
Mm.
And I have also worked with directors who have done that so much leading up to getting to me that they don't have any time left.
Oh,
So I've experienced both.
oh, that's not good.
Yeah, but again, that's why I
Yeah,
always
they
try
got.
to negotiate for time, though, you know.
Oh, okay. So are they not getting to your idea, or are they not getting to you even being part of the project?
Oh no, I'm just not getting to my idea necessarily.
Oh,
But
okay.
the thing is, usually when it comes to film, I mean, if it's for television,
Mm,
that's a hard, fast date that things are due, because they have to get it into a computer system.
yeah.
If it's a film, like an indie film, um, there usually can be a lot of leeway,
Mm,
um, that they don't tell you about, at least initially.
yeah. I know
Yeah.
there are certain things, uh, indie film versus TV show versus big blockbuster film that uses songs as well as scores. There's no formula as to what is looking for what. Depends on who and what
It
they want.
depends on each film is different. And a lot of times, like if they're gonna, you know, what I tend to be hired for is, original score. So if they're
Yeah.
going to, a couple of times I've been asked to actually write a song, but it's usually they already have a song in mind that, that's like another department
Yeah, yeah.
that, but
Sure,
the
it's like music supervisor stuff, not.
yeah, exactly. The issue is when these different departments don't talk to one another, because, a film's supposed to be cohesive, not just certain things just suddenly coming out of the blue,
Yeah.
you know.
And I heard a
Um,
funny thing the other day from Angie Swan where she's on this tour, everybody's dancing and playing at the same time, and the choreographer says, "Okay, on the downbeat, everybody put your hands in the air." And they all looked at each other and like, "Are you kidding? Because if we're all putting our hands in the air, there's no downbeat."
right.
So, yeah, sometimes they don't know what it's going to take. Like you're saying, I didn't know this about this instrument, or can you pinch higher or harder on the bow, or
Yeah.
even when I had Sandy Cott come over to play violin on a couple of my tunes, I wanted the chunk 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 kind of nice
Mm.
sound, percussive sound that a violin can do that was on Constant Craving. And she said, "Well, that's a lovely idea, but the notes that you want me to do it on are open strings."
Oh.
She said, "But I can do it." And
But
she did.
but she still can pull it off, which is
Yeah,
great.
she did pull it off, but she had to tell me, which was cute.
So I would love to just mention something about my book,
Mm-hmm.
because, as artists, we just don't know where our work is going to end up.
That's for sure.
The only thing that's a guarantee is if we don't put it out there, no one is going to receive it,
That's
you
true.
know?
Yeah.
And so I wrote this book that's this inner outer multi-dimensional treasure hunt fairy tale for kids of all ages. That's
I
how
love
I
that
kind of
title.
thank you so much. Right. And so released it in 2020. Um, the feedback I've been getting is just phenomenal from
Nice.
readers. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's with Amazon. I mean, you have to put an age range, and it's but it's for children of all ages, not just children. But I put kids. I think what did I say, like 7 to 10 or something like that. But it's a hit with in France with 30-year-olds.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really, and it's a book. I mean, it's 240 pages. It's a novel, you
Yeah.
know.
And so
Um,
is this self-published on Amazon or do you have a publisher besides an editor?
it's self-published.
And how are they hearing about it? Just through Amazon's picks?
Through Amazon and just word of mouth, it's been getting around. So there's a film director who I work with who is a huge fan of the book, who is making a documentary in Afghanistan. So she tossed a couple of copies. She's American. She
Nice.
tossed a couple of copies in her suitcase. When she was in Afghanistan a few months ago, she gave those copies to two school teachers there who speak English. And they love it. I mean, this book is really meant to be inspiring and empowering, and the hero is a girl.
I love it.
So, especially in Afghanistan right now. So, what's happening is the teachers then word spread, and the teachers there are now requesting that the book be translated for children there so that it can be distributed to kids in Afghanistan who are in grade 6 because the Taliban takes their education away at grade 7.
Oh my God.
So it's being translated into Dari right now. We're about this great guy named Habib is doing the translation. He's
How does that
from
happen?
Afghanistan. What's
She
that?
knows. How does that happen? She knows him. You're
So
hiring him.
yeah, I'm hiring him. So he came. No, I'm sponsoring this. This is why also being successful in film is great because it also sponsors some other humanitarian work really want to do. Because it's not,
Meaning you're paying for it yourself and you're
I
able to
am
do it.
I am paying for it myself. I will probably start going for grants because it's not
Please
cheap.
give to the Ruth Mendelson Foundation to help this.
No kidding. I have a nonprofit, Eagle Vision. Donate to that. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What is that?
Shazam.
Where can they find that?
EagleVisionInc.org is on my website, ruthmendelson.com.
Okay,
And it's just right there under humanitarian and one of the
fantastic.
menu items on there. So yeah, thanks, girl. I really appreciate that. So anyway, so this Habib came highly recommended as a translator. He's amazing because
Nice.
translating fiction is not easy to do at all.
How do you know
Um,
he's doing a good job?
um,
I
Based
can't
on
believe
his
it now, Habib.
no,
What
it's
did
I
you
know
say?
it because I went through two other translators before him,
Oh,
and he was the proofreader for those translators, and
oh,
he was and given what his comments. He's a journalist. I mean, he's a professional journalist
okay, good.
and a writer and a Rhodes Scholar, and the guy's just like freaking brilliant. And he's
Okay.
from Afghanistan, but he lives in Canada, and he understands American isms, American culture.
Oh, good.
So he's able to translate the cultural references
Isn't that
because we
amazing?
all have cultural references, even if we don't
Perfect.
think we do.
That's the perfect person for the job. That's great.
So he's translating. The book is going to be printed in Afghanistan in October and then
Nice.
distributed from there. So
Nice.
it's
Bravo.
really, yeah, I'm so grateful. I mean, this is the stuff that really jazzes me,
Jump up and down. Yeah,
Yeah, woohoo. Like to me,
absolutely.
this is the poof, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the success, when something can really um
Take off.
just take off and help, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just serve something. That's what means the most to me. If it's just a matter of something going viral for me personally, I mean, when I was 18, maybe that wanted something like that, but
That would just fizzle out. So
yeah.
you want something
So
that actually means something to somebody, so it stays with them.
exactly. But this is just to say, like, for anybody who's listening to this, it's like if you have something that you've always wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
like just I mean, I was going to sound like a Nike ad, but
I
it's
know.
like, but we don't, it's not our business to know where our work ends up.
No, it's your business to just feel that desire and follow it and turn it into a flame and launch it
Yeah.
and enjoy doing it because that's the
And
win,
enjoy
as you're
doing
saying.
exactly. So what do you love the most about the creative process these days? Like,
I
where?
always still love writing songs and making them sound like records, just taking little ideas and turning them into something really cool.
That's so awesome.
It's so fun. It's what I've always wanted to do, and I'm really good at it now, and I really get a kick out of it. And I love getting better and better at all the recording aspects of it and
Mm.
learning more instruments and learning more software and just, you know, going down rabbit holes and playing with other people and watching it sound more and more professional. Because the recording production idea of how records sound changes a lot over the years.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see what's happening and what actually fits my music and what things I actually want to learn to do and which things I want to not do. Stuff like that.
So where's your next learning curve?
Probably more with recording.
Mm.
Yeah, because there's
Everything? Anything in particular?
um well there's always new ways to use the gear. Like somebody might think that a compressor is just used to make something louder, but a compressor, because it changes when the transient happens, also determines how well something sits in the pocket of something. You know,
Right.
so there's just all these different things to experiment with and play with, but mostly just to get a mix to sound really good, that it sounds believable. Like sometimes when I've played all the
Hmm.
parts in the past, it sounds like I'm playing all the parts in the past, but I've just got to that place now in the last maybe 15 years where it's starting to sound like I'm the whole band and it sounds like different players, which is interesting.
That's cool.
That reminds me of groove though. Like, did you ever learn anything specifically as a bass player that taught you about pocket and groove and listening to a drummer? Because I'm amazed lately at how
Mm.
important the bass is and how the bass can change the whole everything of a song.
Yeah, no kidding. Bass is like kind of the unsung hero. It's kind of like film scoring because when it's well done, you don't notice it,
Right, right.
you know?
Sure.
Um, I think for me, the training honestly was just being around musicians, just being around music. When I was a kid in Chicago, I used to sneak into uh, a club in the south side of Chicago called the Checkerboard.
Hmm.
And I was this little half pint thing, way underage. And I would sneak in, my friend Miles and I, we would sneak into this club and just sit in the very back so that nobody would notice us, hopefully. And the players, the musicians in that club were absolutely for real. I mean, Muddy Waters used to come in and just sit at the bar.
Wow.
This was back in the day.
Was this in
And
the evening? That's why you guys weren't supposed to be
this
there.
was in the nighttime, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a band called The Pieces, and they were tight. I mean, I don't think anybody other than maybe on that block knew who these musicians were, but they were real musicians. And
Yeah,
this was a blues club.
yeah. The pieces
And
are amazing.
this was storytelling back then. It wasn't a matter of progressions. This is how my day went, poof, you know.
Mm.
And there was one time there was the big guy named Murphy, guitar player in the band. Like I mean, he wore like 300-400 pound guy, guitarist. Like the guitar looked like a little toothpick next to his body, and he took off his guitar after one tune, and he pointed right at me.
I
Like
thought you guys were way in the back.
I am in the back.
Oh
And
my.
I was like, there's no way he's pointing at me. And he's like, you come here.
Oh
And
God.
so, and it's like, oh man, I'm busted. I'm going to get kicked out. And so I went up to the stage and he handed me his guitar.
Whoa.
He said, okay, come on, play. Now
Whoa.
he didn't have an adjustable strap. This
Oh,
guitar was, I was like Jimmy Page. This
yeah.
guitar was down to my ankles. I'm 11 years old, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just like this scrawny little thing. And I'd never played an electric guitar before. I'd played
Oh,
acoustic. So
jeez.
so I mean, just the touch was so different. Everything about it was shocking to me. And the band kicked into Otis Redding sitting on the dock of the bay.
Did you know the song?
I knew the song, but I didn't know how to play it.
He didn't even ask you what song you wanted to play?
No, no, it was just play. You know, I mean, this is real old school. Just throw you into the fire. Poof,
Okay.
right? So I took a solo. It was the world's worst solo on the it just, when everything is so bad, everything's in slow motion. Like
Right.
it wouldn't end. Please let this verse end. Get me out of here. Put me out of this pain.
Oh, no.
So anyway, at the end of the tune, I just hung my head and handed him back his guitar.
Oh, God.
And I just skulked out of there and I sat outside on the curb. Like these days, I think the neighborhood is just too dangerous now. But back then, you could just do this kind of thing. I just sat outside the club on the curb, just like, oh my God, what just
Wow.
happened? And he came out, this guy Murphy, he came out and he sat down on the curb next to me with his little paper bag, drinking out his paper bag, And I was just like, I didn't even have any words for him. And he said, no, no, you got it. You got it, but you just need to keep coming back. You
Oh,
keep coming
that's so
back
cool.
and you absorb this music because you got it. And
Wow.
so I did. I kept coming back and he was right, you know,
Because I
but
was going to
that's,
say, after an experience like that, how do you get the confidence to not have stage fright to ever get back on stage again? But he encouraged you to just keep coming back.
yeah. I mean, he was
Wow.
really encouraging. He really saw something,
I
you
like
know.
when people see something. I felt like even all through Berkeley, nobody saw anything in me.
Mm,
They were
wow.
looking through the jazz lens and the classical lens, and I had to just keep the
Yeah.
vision myself
Yeah.
because there was so many reasons to disqualify me, besides the girl thing.
Right.
And
Mm.
yeah, that's a fantastic thing. So how many times did you go back?
I didn't really count, but like, I mean, several,
Yeah.
just absorbing the music. And
But
so,
did they have you get up and play each time?
no, no, no,
Okay.
that was a one-time shot.
Okay.
I did not want it. I didn't, I needed to, he was just a real angel in disguise. I mean, he saw that I loved music. He could
Mm,
tell,
yeah.
you know, and he saw that I could feel it, but I didn't know what I was doing. So it was just, school was in session. I was there to just absorb. I was just there to listen, really listen and absorb.
So then the very next time you got on stage, did this haunt you or you were able to deal with it?
No, honestly, it's interesting because I never even thought about it.
That's so cool. That's so
Never
cool. Some
thought about
people would
it.
have used that as an excuse to never pick up a guitar and go on stage again.
Yeah, that wasn't that, um, I mean, I remember one time, honestly, I don't know if you're going to want to keep this in here or not, but I remember one time at Berklee years ago when because I was a guitarist, I started with guitar.
Yeah.
And there was a teacher, I don't even remember his name, but he said, "What are you doing here? You shouldn't be here," because I was a girl,
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah. We
know?
had teachers like that in those days, and Mike Matheny with the trumpet students that were girls. Yeah.
Yeah, and but for me, the way that I was constructed back at that point in time,
Mm.
I took that was fuel for me.
Ooh.
It's like, you tell me I can't be here? Watch me be here 5 minutes early every class, asshole.
Was this in a class or was it in a lesson?
It was a class.
Okay.
It was a lab.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, no, I was the kind of person back then that, if you're gonna question me like that,
Mm-hmm.
watch me then.
Did he have a little bald head and a little mustache? Because there
No.
was there was a guy that was telling everybody to take W's and get out before they failed.
Oh my God. It's just, I mean, just like, yeah. No, he wasn't bald. But
Okay.
it was real fuel because it's like, who are you? The other thing is, I mean, I drove a truck for an entire year before I got into Berkeley. It's like after everything I have been through, who in the hell are you to tell me I don't belong here?
I know. And
You drive a truck for a year.
we all need that kind of inner strength, you know?
Right. Well, you had that clearly because you didn't have that validation either, you
No.
know? And
I,
so,
I was playing
yeah,
9 years before I went to Berklee, and I had a great teacher for 5 of those years, and I was writing songs for since I was 10 years old, and I just knew I had something I really enjoyed. I didn't know how good it was, and there was certainly a lot for me to learn, but as far as getting a nice sound out of the guitar, I could do that already. And nobody was going to take that from me. It's like, I don't care what you think. I played
right.
really well, and I had done a ton of gigs before I went to Berklee, and I just wanted to get better. And I just knew I
Right.
belonged there. I don't know where that came from. I really was like, I belong here to go here. And then I felt like I needed to be part of the faculty because they needed new blood, and I
Hmm,
felt like I had something serious to offer. And
hmm.
I don't know where that came from, but I'm so glad that Larry Bayonne saw it, and he put in a good word for me with Bill Levitt. And Bill called me up one day and just said, we want you. We have an opening. You know, so
Wow.
40 years later.
Right. Well, I mean, but this is kind of what I mean about how, in terms of the bigger questions, like who are you? Who are like you clearly knew that about yourself already.
Yeah, I knew I was a guitar player. I knew I was a musician.
Yeah, I mean, coming into it, you knew that, you
Yeah, they
know,
weren't going to take that from me.
no, no way. And
No.
that's right. And that kind of inner core self-knowledge, is just it's so important. So like, yeah, so when that guy he said, "What are you doing here?" It's like, wow, okay. I mean, really, it was incentive.
Were you?
It was total incentive. But your original question about like, musically, like paying attention to like the bass and the drums and the kick and
Yes,
all of
yes,
that.
yes.
Those days in the clubs in Chicago taught me all about that because I had some of the best mentors on the planet
Oh,
for blues, especially R&B, blues, jazz, funk,
yes.
because that, the music scene there was absolutely for real.
Oh, yeah.
So
Every,
that was really my training. Like I wasn't an act I didn't have lessons.
oh,
I
wow.
I was completely self-taught
On bass.
on guitar and bass.
Nice.
Well, bass I didn't really start until Berklee. So bass
Yeah.
was, I did take some lessons, but I was also just, really working things out on my own. Like, but I remember as a guitar player, I was always in love with the bass,
Nice.
like just enamored with the bass.
Yeah.
Com-
I love
complete.
playing bass.
Yeah, and it's great. So it's
I
a
started playing bass probably around the same time I started playing guitar, but not in a very official way. I probably still
yeah,
sound like a guitar player playing bass, but I like my bass lines. I like some of the things I can come up with.
yeah. Well, you're a very
I guess,
lyrical player.
oh, well, I like the way you were saying you had this fantastic training. The rest of us can get that training if we don't have a good club to go to, is just listen to the best records and the best musicians,
No kidding.
the real players, not just the folks that are, you know, cutting and pasting and just using other people's playing to think that they've just written a song or something.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just as much as possible. It's kind of like what Murphy, this guy said to me. That's
Mm,
just so it was everything. He said, you just come and absorb the music. Just got to, be around the music itself.
you must have looked like a natural, even though the guitar was too low. He just saw the passion and saw the desire and went, you've got to do this. You've got it.
Yeah,
Now
he
go get some
was
training.
yeah, he was he was a really important guide back then,
I
you
like that.
know. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I guess
so,
certainly my teacher, Lou Sabini, was that for me. I mean, I knew he
wow.
was a giant musician, and he liked that I was figuring out Yes and Steve Howe's Mood for a Day when I was 14 by ear. He's like, this kid's crazy. Like this kid's like, he wasn't even giving me that as an assignment. And I heard the other student was doing it and having trouble with it. And I thought, oh, I like that one. Let me try it. And I came back and played for him. And the next week, and he went, you learned this off the record? He's looking at my mother like, who does this at 14 years old, and stuff like
Wow.
that. So, uh, music just makes sense in my head, right? And
Right.
rhythm and groove. I can remember even being in a composition class and learning how to write essays, and the teacher was giving us examples of sentences and paragraphs, and I caught on to the rhythm and went, oh, all I have to do is fill that form, fill that rhythm, and I did well on all my essays and stuff. It's not like I don't have things to say, but
Right.
uh, yeah, I don't know. There's just certain things with language and music that have always made sense to my brain. Not so much math.
Right. Well,
Even
you're a natural musician,
but
you know?
music is a lot of math, which is funny.
Yeah, it's a lot. Well, I mean, I understand that now as a
Or it
composer,
can be.
it's there are a lot of dimensional relationships,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, relationships in proportion.
And I think universally they say almost every subject, if you go down deep enough, is the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. I know you dig,
And
you know,
everything is energy, and we're all connected.
keep drilling, you'll get it. You'll
Oh,
get there,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know.
Uh, this
Kind
is
of
so cool.
crazy.
This is so
Yeah.
great. Wow. This was an amazing conversation.
It's always great talking with you.
Well, I don't think we've ever had a chance to talk this deeply about this stuff, but I really appreciate you doing this with me.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you doing this with me too. It's really, really awesome. I love what you're doing. And it's really important to just, you know, encourage other people to just go for it, you know?
Yeah, well, especially now that everything is international with streaming and all that stuff,
Mhm.
it's disappointing on the having something physical to sell kind of side, but to have people from all over the world writing me and saying they're listening to the podcast or they're listening to the music and stuff like that, that's fascinating because I wasn't touring in Egypt and I wasn't over in Istanbul or wherever these places are coming from. The people are everywhere checking things out, and it's very, very cool.
Wow.
It's not about where is it landing and who is it meaning something to. The music always meant something to me, and I put a lot of love and effort into it. And anytime it reaches somebody else and they like it, check. That's mission accomplished. But to me, the biggest excitement and the really woohoo jumping up and down is making it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You know,
Totally.
I mean,
Well,
talking about it is fun too, but making it is like, woo, that's when the chakras are spinning and everything else.
I know that I know you're playing bass these days, but you
Oh,
know,
I've always played bass, yeah, since I was a little kid.
yeah. Well, if you want another bass player sitting in sometime,
Yeah, we can share tracks now and send me waveforms.
true, true
Same,
that.
I've enjoyed playing guitar on some of your projects and scores, and we can do that
Your
again.
sound has been amazing. That's the thing also. I mean, you're the the quality of the sound that you are getting
Mm.
is just really, really, really sublime. You know, it's really
Oh, cool.
nice.
I'm working at it. That's good to know.
Yeah, no, it's clearly you are because it sounds really freaking good.
Well, yeah, you've known it from the beginning, so.
Well,
Well,
even back then, even back then, you know, you were always on your way with it, but and I can't even, you know, I haven't heard you in the last couple of years, so I'm sure it's even more stellar than, you know, even in recent times. So
well, you played bass on my first album, the Two True 1980
right. Oh my
Among the
goodness.
Ruins album, right?
Wow. Yep. Yep.
So
Back in the
fun.
day.
Sad Stranger and so great.
Wow. Just crazy. Hey, you know, there's one other story. I know we're wrapping it up,
Okay,
but there is another, if you're cool with it, there is another,
go for it.
we've been on like forever, but um
There's forever more
um
to come.
okay. In terms of, because I'm producing Jane Goodall these days,
Oh, good.
which is really I mean, I think this is just part of also in terms of creatively setting intention. Like about 10 years ago, I made a decision. I really, really want to use my talents, especially towards projects that are going to be helping the planet out, like no kidding,
Oh, good.
you know. And so here it is, like 7 years later, six or 7 years after that intention was set. Now I'm, you know, working I was already friends with Jane Goodall, but now we're working very closely together on various projects.
Yeah, you've been
And
doing that now for a while. But
I've been doing it.
how did you meet her? I mean, you set an intention like that. People would want to know. Did you pester her with a million phone calls?
No, that was purely by accident,
That's great.
in quotes. So I was the gospel choir, One Human Family, that I've been gigging with. We were asked to open at the UN for a peace summit back in 2002.
Oh,
So my bass got lost between Geneva and between Heathrow and Geneva. So I arrived, we were playing the next day. I did not have a bass.
baseless. Oh, God.
Baseless in Geneva.
Guess the next book.
Right. So it's just me looking like this. Where with an amp, no bass. So right. So what happened was because, and this is just like another one of those things where like the right thing going, the wrong thing happening in the right way. So because my bass was lost, I had to stay behind at the airport and fill out paperwork for the bass.
Sure.
And because of that, I was on a later shuttle to my hotel.
Okay.
On that shuttle, I sat right next to Jane Goodall's assistant
And how did you know it was her?
because she introduced herself to me as that.
Oh, she wanted you to know.
Yeah, she wanted me to know. And it was really interesting because, we were going to this peace summit or we were introducing I mean, she didn't say it like in an ego-y way. We introduced each other, what we were
What do
doing
you
there.
do? What
And
are you doing there?
right.
Oh,
And so she was mentioning that she was Jane Goodall's assistant.
oh, that's great.
And I had said, and we talked about a lot of different things. But there was something really profound that happened in that conversation with her because I said to her, wow, this is so exciting. I've never been to a summit like this at the UN before. I just want to be a fly on the wall and just take everything in. And she looked right into me and said, I hope you're going to be more than just that.
Ooh, this is from the assistant?
This is from her assistant,
Rawr. Did you know
right?
Jane Goodall was going to be at this?
No, I had no idea.
Oh, I love it.
I didn't know anything that was going on other than that I just needed to get to my hotel and hopefully find my bass. So that's all I knew. So the next day we were playing, right? They did find my bass. We got to the UN. Now this is like the Grand Assembly. Have you ever been there? The Grand
No.
Assembly. It's amazing. It's a gorgeous space.
Wow.
It's amazing. It's like all blonde wood. It was a cold, rainy day. It looked like it was spring, because the it's this huge space, and because of the blonde wood, it just reflected light. I mean, it was really, really beautiful in there.
Mm.
So we're doing our sound check. It's us in a taiko drum ensemble from Japan,
Wow.
and so it's our turn for sound check. The power goes out on stage. We have no power. I'm playing an electronic instrument, right? So while we're trying to get the power back on stage, people are entering into this assembly hall. And it was just like there were 98 countries represented there, and just this beautiful mosaic of skin tone and fabrics. I mean, it was amazing.
Wow.
It was amazing, but we didn't have any power.
Oh, so
And
is
it was
everybody in the
just,
dark? Or they have
what's it?
generators for the lights?
No, it was only on stage. There was no power. Everywhere else had power.
That's,
So we were in the dark with no sound,
jeez.
but everybody else was starting to enter. And then poof, the power came on and the event was starting.
So there's no sound check, but at least
So there was no sound check, but it was like crazy. So the choir came on. It was just like people running around on stage, just getting in position, all this kind of stuff. Well, no, actually, it was the taiko drum ensemble. They opened first, then us. But when we came on, there was just all this mayhem getting stuff set up because we had not had a sound check.
Sure.
Right. So in the meantime, the cabinet that was provided for me at the UN was on wheels. Okay. This is significant. Okay. So at one point, it's like, okay, we're going to start. I just close my eyes, just center. It's like, okay, we're here.
We're playing.
Put the rest. Yeah. Just be in the music now. Everything else doesn't matter. So I closed my eyes, start to play. I'm like, wow, the sound is so warm in this hall. It's so intimate. This is like absolutely amazing. Like, how did they get a sound like this in here? The auditorium's so huge. I open my eyes. in all of the mayhem, the bass cabinet that's on wheels rolled in front of me and is facing me. So here I am in front of the entire world, taking my bass amp to turn it around while I'm playing, right? In the meantime, unknown to me, I found this out later, Jane Goodall is in the audience saying to her assistant, who I was on the shuttle with the day before, saying, looking at me, saying, "Who is that?" And then her assistant told her all about our conversation. Okay.
That's great.
Now, the next day, and then we played and it was amazing. And we were asked to do an encore, which is very unusual at the UN because the UN needs to approve all lyrics before you do anything, you know.
Everything else
But
is
so the
fine.
gig went great, even although it, it had really harrowing kinds of beginnings. So the next day, it's a 4-day summit, right? So, and the musicians, we were invited to go to everything. I went to everything.
Wow.
I went to everything. It was amazing. It was really life changing for me. It's very, very
Sure.
inciting for me in
Wow.
terms of just what does it mean to be a global citizen? What does it
Mm,
mean to be a musician as a global citizen? How
that's a
cool
really
is that?
yeah. It makes you like an ambassador of love.
Exactly. That is what we all are,
Yeah. If we
you know,
rise.
right? Yeah. So that was my introduction into that, though. I mean, for myself.
That's so
And
cool.
so, but there was Jane Goodall the following day,
Yeah.
alone walking down this staircase. So I very geekishly went up to her, Dr. Goodall, I want to thank you. Like, just thank her for
Yeah.
all the things that she's done for the planet, which have been significant.
Yeah.
And she said, "Oh, no, Ruth, I've heard all about you. My assistant told me all about your conversation. Would you carry my purse?" And literally,
Your
boom, in an
assistant.
instant, I'm carrying Dr. Jane's purse. We're arm in arm. She said, "I'm about to go teach a workshop or lead a workshop. Will you, come with me?" And so I attended that workshop, and it was all about what can we do for the world's youth.
Nice.
And it was my first experience of being in a global community of everyone just thinking together and offering ideas. I mean, I'd never experienced anything like that before. I didn't know it was a fulfillment I did not know I'd been seeking.
Did you think of your book?
It hadn't been written yet.
Oh, but I thought you'd been working on it for 30 years.
I had, well, so I mean, I started it in
Thinking of it.
'85,
Yeah.
but it, no, it influenced a lot of humanitarian work, like the Well Wishes Project,
Nice.
you know, oh, the name of my book, by the way, is called The Water Tree Way. I don't think I even mentioned that, but
No. Say it again.
um, The Water Tree Way.
Nice.
That's the name of the book. But
Yeah,
I
that's
wasn't
on
thinking,
Amazon.
yeah. Oh, thank you. I wasn't thinking about the book at that point. I was more just um, aware that there was something really spectacular going on. And
Mm.
I was just so grateful to be there. The other thing is, though, I didn't want to go when I first heard about the gig in
How come?
Geneva. We had
My
just
faith
gotten off.
might get lost.
um, we had just gotten off tour, and
Yeah.
I was toast. I was tired. I
Oh,
didn't
from
want to
another
go.
tour. Yeah.
Yeah, we with the gospel choir, we had just toured the South,
Okay.
and I was just toasty. I didn't
Oh,
want to,
sure.
I just wanted to stop.
Yeah.
But this voice came in, I mean, like clear as day. And I mean, um, this usually doesn't happen when I actually literally hear a sentence in my mind that feels much bigger than my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But this voice came into my mind and said, your life is measured by what you give, not by what you take. You better go."
Mm.
So I went, and then this is what happened.
Opportunity speaking.
Yeah.
Well, the thing about the voices in our head is if it's positive and uplifting, encouraging, or loving,
Mm,
it's a real thing to listen to. And if it's
correct.
putting you down and making you feel small or anything worse, it's not a good message and not something you're supposed to follow or take in. They're
Right,
thoughts that pass by that aren't even ours, They're just
right,
old recordings and ruminations of horrible things people have said to us in the past, and you're not supposed to keep repeating those. Like you
true,
say, when you're dedicated to a healthy mind, you have to be a good steward of what you're going to allow in there and how often you're going to ruminate on it, because you've got to change it. It's like having a one of those songs in your head that you can't get rid of. The only way to get rid of a song you don't want to hear in your head is to put a different one in there. So you've got to put the better thought in there and lift
true,
yourself back up, reboot and stuff. It's
true.
a lot of work, a lot of practicing, but it's the best way to go about your day, because I've spent years depressed about stupid things, and I've spent
Mm,
months or
mm,
weeks just dragging myself around, just having one bad day after another, and there's no reason for that ever,
correct.
because you're using old stuff to ruin today. So that's the whole point. It's like it's for your benefit to think
Right
better and to learn how to drive this thing, this
thing.
interface in life, to have a good life. It takes decades to learn it, I guess, but I
Yeah,
managed.
it does. Yeah, it does, and it takes maintenance.
Yeah, a lot of maintenance.
Takes it's not maintenance free,
Now you
but it
can't
beats you
set
out.
it and forget it.
I mean, wouldn't that be great? Just auto cruise.
Well, yeah, like
But
everything, we think it's going to be like a degree to put on the wall. I've done that already. I've done positive thinking. I read the book on learned optimism. I've done the such and such with positive whatever, and it's like, no,
mm,
you have to do it in every moment, because every little thing can sway you a different way. And like Kate Bush has that song, Rubber Band Girl. See those
mm,
trees bend in the wind. I think they have a lot more sense than me, because I tend to resist. And she wants to be a rubber band girl where she can, just kind of go with the flow and stuff. And the real flow of life is a positive thing. So when they say row your boat gently down the stream, it's not taking the easy way out. It's going with the way your life is, and it doesn't necessarily even mean fate. It just means this is where the life force is. Follow your desires, follow the fun, follow it's just so great.
yeah, absolutely. 100%.
I just love that
100%.
these were your essence beliefs of I want to be part of making the world a better place. And even when you're not ready, the opportunity is there. There's a portal to get you to the UN. It's like, take it. Even though you're tired, you can sleep on the plane.
And I have. I mean, that happened to me in Japan. This was crazy. I did not want to go to Japan, but I didn't. And
Konnichiwa.
what's that?
Konnichiwa.
Ah, yeah. Arigato. But it was right after the tsunami,
Whoa.
and I did not want to go to Japan. But then I suddenly had this inkling to go with Amma. That's a whole other in terms of who Amma is,
Mm.
to go with Amma to Japan. And I mean, I'm not prescribed. I'm not saying that this is a good thing to do. I'm just saying this happened. Okay. I've never done anything like this before or since then. But I got a plane ticket for the next day. You know how expensive that was? I mean, thousands of dollars to go to Japan. But I
Uh-uh.
felt like I was supposed to, it turns out I actually was supposed to go there.
Like in a moment's notice, like you didn't plan it ahead to get a better
I
deal.
did not plan it ahead. I had like 2 hours
Mm.
notice.
Wow. And who asked you or
And
gave you the idea? What happened?
I ended up working with orphans out there,
Whoa.
who were newly orphaned from the tsunami.
Oh my God.
And it was an amazing journey. But then when I got back, I was awarded a grant I didn't even apply for.
Yay!
And that's what paid for the trip. Because I was like, what have I just done? I've just spent, like, at the time, you know, thousands of dollars on a plane fare. Like, what am I doing? But yeah, but then I'll never forget, I got my mail, that had accumulated a bit because I'd been gone for a little while. And yeah, there was just this check for this grant that it's like, I didn't apply for a grant, but it was,
That's awesome. But you have
yeah.
to back up a little. What was the impetus to go to Japan? A phone call?
The impetus to go to Japan was, I knew that Amma was going to Japan. Amma, for anybody who Amma was awarded the Gandhi King Award for Nonviolence by Jane Goodall at the UN. Actually, that event that I opened for,
Mm-hmm.
Jane Goodall was presenting that award to Amma.
Nice.
Um,
Is she the one
ex-
that hugs everybody?
yeah, extraordinary humanitarian and
Loving.
emanates love,
Yeah.
just totally emanates divine love. But I knew that she was going for humanitarian reasons to Japan,
Okay.
and I just suddenly felt inspired to go.
Wow.
It was as simple as that, but it was so strong.
But it sounded like the tsunami was taking you by surprise. Like, why would I do that when there's just been a tsunami? Did you not know that you'd be there helping in some way?
Well, the tsunami had already happened,
Sure.
so
So you
I
knew it
was
was like, I could be part of the help, maybe.
yeah, but I wasn't expecting to go straight there because I actually was really concerned about the nuclear thing happening over there at the time.
Ooh.
But this other
Do you
desire
glow
to
in the dark
go,
now?
yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's like I mean, who needs lights? Yeah, it's like
I save on my
me.
electric bill because I have
Exactly, it's
self-power.
like no more need for any light bulbs anywhere. So, that takes care of that, working in the studio at night, everything's, I just emanate. That's it. It
My
works.
scores are powered by divine love.
Yeah, so it was just but yeah, it was just this sudden very uh, s- it was a pull. It was a pull to go. But it was actually very the other thing that was really very powerful and moving for me about that trip. So working with these orphans was really important, actually. And I was there working with some pregnant women. That was powerful. Um, but I remember I was sitting in a cafeteria at one point and I was talking with somebody and I was laughing. And it was, in that culture, I did not know it's not at the time anyway. This may be different now, but at the time it would actually be considered quite rude to laugh out loud. I
No
kind of
wonder
have a
my Japanese
loud,
students look at me crazy
yeah, right,
because I'm such a nut.
right, right, exactly. So this man came up to me and he said, "Excuse me, may I laugh with you?"
Oh my God.
And I was like, sure."
Was he
And he
Japanese?
said, "Yes."
So he maybe
I
heard you.
was I was the only American in the room, right? And and we laughed together, and then his wife came, and his kids came, and we all sat together at this table and laughed together,
Oh, that's
and
great.
it was powerful though. I mean, it was really moving. These guys had just lived through a freaking tsunami, and the tensions that were happening in the country at that time. When I first arrived, there were aftershocks. There were some buildings that were swaying. I'm like, my God, what have I done? What am I doing here? But I mean, everything worked out
Mm.
like phenomenally, actually. Um, but it was very moving. I worked with a lot of kids. Also, the kids made banners. We took paper and crayons, and the kids just drew beautiful things, and we made these paper quilts of just images of just beautiful things created by these children. And so the whole focus was on beauty and laughter, actually.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was really powerful. And some of them ended up recording for some other humanitarian projects that I do, audio projects.
Mm.
So it was a very purposeful trip, but I had no I usually don't operate like that though. It's like, oh, I'm going to just, fly halfway around the world and spend thousands of dollars on the plane ticket. It's like,
Well,
um,
there's like the three things, right? I mean,
mm,
connecting with human beings and laughter and real heartfelt love and warmth and compassion from someone like you, so far from home, coming to help is a
yeah,
beautiful thing. People probably felt that right there and then. And not only your apprehension, like, what am I doing here, but I would love to help make this better for you somehow. And
right.
giving of yourself is such a beautiful thing. So, yeah,
It's very important. I mean, it's really, and that gets back to, again, just like taking risks. It's not, even in terms of teaching at Berklee, like
Hmm.
Berklee called me. I didn't want to teach.
I know I never wanted to teach really either, but I needed a job when I was 24. And I just thought I could fit here. I belong here. But I know
That's
what you mean. I could just be an artist and that would be fine, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't on my radar to even I mean, I love teaching. I'm very grateful to be
Mhm.
teaching now,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
a wonderful,
feel
cool thing.
it is an amazing thing. I mean, I really
Hmm.
I feel a huge passion and commitment to it. I mean, I think it's a there's it's purposeful. It's
Hmm.
important, you know. It's important because there are things to give and there are things to encourage.
Mm. But it sounds like you've learned those three things that they say are so important in life, right? Something happens. It's not good or bad. It's
Mm,
whatever you decide it is.
true.
And so, no matter what happens next, how are you going to think about it? Can you find the good in it
Yes.
and find some blessings or find something positive about it? And then anything that's negative or that you dislike, can you let it go and not be blameful or negative about it? Like, just don't hold on to them. Like, they're not even for dwelling on. It's just something that you let pass, you know?
Right. It's important. It's important. But I think also, I mean, because for me, it's like, how you were saying, what it's like to be down and to,
Hmm.
all of us do. I know I definitely have. And you get
Hmm.
to a point though, it's like, is this how I want to use my energy?
Right, right.
I
Should I be
mean,
spending my time on this today and wreck today as well as all those days prior about the same damn thing, about the same situations? That's just crazy.
right. Because we actually have so much more power than that.
Yes.
you know but the thing is that I feel, like these other voices that will want to kind of drag you down,
Hmm.
um that's their purpose. They're good at it. That's how I see it anyway. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel
That's
like there's
their
just there are bad role models, you know? There's more pull and like a magnetic drag you
Mm,
down kind of a thing to be just like everybody else and to be negative and to say everything sucks or whatever
mm,
counterculture kind of blah blah, but
yeah.
to be positive or to use your power for the good or to remember to use magic because magic is in the world. That's like the hardest thing for some people because they just think you're not living in the real world, and the world is always everything. It's always
Yeah,
good and bad at the same time,
true.
always, from the beginning of time, and probably will be forever. No one will ever all be on the same page about the same things, about anything. And navigating that is an existential crisis, you know?
Right. But I think, in terms of, if for people who might say you're not being in the real world,
Hmm.
the world is a subjective experience.
Your world is right here.
Maybe that's your world, but it's
Exactly.
not the world.
Exactly.
We're
It's
far
always,
more powerful than that.
it's whatever world's going on between your two ears.
That's it. That's it exactly.
Yeah, and
It's just it
everything's a game. Everything is made up and everything is a game, like all the awards and everything else. That's what I have a song called, it's The Game's Insane. You know? No, what's it called? No, it's called Make Something Better. It's on the same album as The Game's Insane. The Game's Insane was about our almost going on strike recently.
uh-huh.
Make Something Better is about everything's made up, so make something better, make it your own way.
You know, Happiness is a decision,
Absolutely.
you know, and love is not necessarily an emotion.
No, it's a
I
verb.
mean, it's a verb. Exactly, it's a verb.
Yeah. Does it take
So
5 or 6 decades to learn these things? Is this why we're talking about this stuff? Or no, I think
probably.
I've always thought all you need is love, and that was when I was 7.
Yep.
That's when
Well,
that
I
song
think
came out.
I think when you're, in the single digit years, you just
Mm,
innately know this stuff. Then you can get distracted with stuff that doesn't matter until
yeah.
you finally come back around to the original simplicity of
Yes.
what actually matters.
Yes, yes, yes.
you know, but that other, this other stuff, I mean, there's always a choice, you know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I had a student from Israel who was convinced that there would never be peace in the Middle East.
Oh,
And he was in my doc practicum class, which I got to design.
what's doc practicum?
This the class. You know what? We're going way over? Do you want to cut this off now, or you want to?
Way over what? There's no
Well, okay.
good
All right. Cool. All right. Here we go. All right.
ending.
So, all right. Allison Plant was chair of the film scoring department at the time.
Okay.
And to her, I'm saying her name because I really want to credit her. She asked me to create a course on documentary at Berklee.
Nice.
Film documentary was not an acknowledged film, a form of film in the department until that point.
Uh,
Well, yeah. So yeah, so I said to her, well, I would love to do it, but I want this then to be compassion-based education. I mean, I really,
mm.
that's what oh, yay, puppy.
He's like, it's dinner
Hey.
time. What's happening? Can you stop talking?
You need to feed me now.
No,
Hi,
it's
sweetheart.
time.
All right, I'll make this really quick. So Allison asked me to create this course.
Hmm.
And so Doc Practicum is a masterclass in documentary scoring.
Awesome.
It's really great. So I bring in films that are real films in the world that legitimately do not have budgets for music,
Oh,
but that
wow.
are affecting the subjects of these documentaries are environmental, social, anything in between, whatever's happening that's relevant.
Oh, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, films that are designed to really bring awareness and positive change, not the kind of documentaries that just, might expose a really horrible problem and then they just leave you there, you know, not like that, but
Yeah.
um,
So
films that are
you're,
designed to inspire change.
and how do you get the word out to find projects?
To find films,
Yeah.
I have networks of different film societies and directors who,
Great.
yeah, so
There's never a shortage.
there's no shortage at all,
That's
but
awesome. What a
it's
cool.
incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
but one film series that we scored was about Rwandan orphans who have
Mm,
grown up to become actually world-renowned photographers
fantastic.
who were reconciling with the perpetrators who killed their parents.
Oh my God.
Like these are I mean, we deal with some for real topics in this class.
Holy cow.
So we had
Probably
to,
intense
so the
conversations.
exactly, but so to prepare ourselves though to score this thing, we had discussions in class like, you know, have you ever been in a position to have to really forgive someone for something that unspeakable that was done to you or to someone who you're close to. So we had to really get in there,
Ugh, yeah. That's huge.
but it was really powerful and beautiful. And this one student who was from Israel who never thought that there would be peace in the Middle East
Mm.
ended up writing beautiful music for his segment. And he ended up meeting these guys because the orphans were actually from Rwanda, were in Boston for an event,
Wow.
and they played the students' piece at this event.
Mm-hmm.
And we all went. I mean, it was amazing to see him honored for his work. And he left by the end of the semester. He was saying, I used to feel this way. Now I'm going to spend my life now working for peace in the Middle East.
Wow. He found his calling through this. This is huge, Ruth.
It's really cool. But this is everything we're talking about. This is the cooperative model.
Yes, yes. And we're the cooperative components. If, like, they, I really love the teachings of Abraham Hicks on YouTube.
Yeah.
You can listen to a whole bunch of stuff. And it's always like, no matter what your dream is, and no matter what your vision is, and no matter what your desires are, we're usually the last ones to the party. We're the last cooperative component for our own dream because we
Mm.
don't believe it's going to happen or we don't think we have the ability to make a difference or something. And you just have to side in with your own dream and get on your own team.
Yep,
So great.
absolutely.
That's
So
beautiful.
listen, you've been incredibly generous with your time. I mean, we've been let's thank you. Thank you.
Get the hook, and we'll call it a day.
Let's
That's
you
awesome. Well, it was great to see you and hang with you, and thank you for your time because you're a busy musician, and I'm glad you're taking a rest. But yeah, I needed adult conversation, you know, and
mm,
creative talks. It's like I'm starting to realize, as much as I've needed creative company my whole life, it's been around me, and we've all been so busy making our careers and doing our lives that we didn't always have time to do this, and this is why this is so special to me. So thank you.
well, you're welcome and thank you. You know what I would really love, and this is more of an offline thing.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to maybe have like a monthly salon where,
Mm,
you know, artists can get together and just share what they've been doing. Would you
I would
want to
love
be
that.
a part of something like that?
Absolutely, sure.
Like, I mean, I would absolutely love that. I mean, I could host it here. We could do it somewhere. I don't,
It could be, revolving, or it could, yeah,
it could be revolving.
yep.
If there are other artists who you can think of who might want to be a part of something like that,
Could even be on Zoom.
could that's true. Could be on Zoom.
You don't
It
have to
could
go anywhere.
it could be on Zoom. That could be cool. Or
Whatever
it
you
could be
like.
or in person. I mean, in person is always great too,
Oh, sure.
you know. Um, but I just I just thought of that. That would be I mean, I would love that. I would really love that.
I
I
know
would
we all need to keep feeding each other and ourselves,
yep, no kidding.
So
So
cool.
listen, I'm gonna get out in the day. You need to feed your pups.
Yep, yep. Both of them are looking at me like,
Yeah, I hear them.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Okay, you guys are being so patient. All right. All right. Well, it's great to see you.
Great to see you, Ruth. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Many blessings.
Take care.
Ciao for now.
Bye bye.